Chapter 8:16. The little golden carp had been waiting outside for a long time. Seeing Lu Chen and the others come out, it took Lu Chen back to the shore. There were still magical beasts at the bottom of the lake, but with the little golden carp there, they did not attack Lu Chen. On the shore, the little golden carp looked at Lu Chen reluctantly. "Benefactor, little Jean is leaving. You have to be careful when you are alone in the future." Lu Chen smiled, squatted down and touched the little golden carp's head. "You too. I hope we have a chance to meet again." "Well, I will be careful." "Benefactor, little Jean, is leaving, go." The little golden carp suddenly disappeared. Lu Chen sighed, "This guy is very special." Withdrawing his gaze, Lu Chen turned around and left. Wearing the soldier's uniform, Lu Chen smoothly passed the first roadblock. When he passed by the Spirit Stone mine, the corpses outside the mine had been cleaned up, leaving only a few soldiers nearby. The dark cave entrance looked a little creepy. Lu Chen quickened his pace. This time, the journey to the White Lion Kingdom was long. Lu Chen still felt that he should go to the Dongyu Kingdom first to buy some daily necessities. Monarch City had 4 city gates and there was a line of words on each city gate. For example, the East Gate was open to people above Earth Cultivation, the North Gate was open to people above Grand Cultivator, the West Gate was open to cultivators above Grand Cultivator, and the South Gate was open to civilians. It was said that even people of different levels had to go through different gates according to their own realm. Lu Chen chose the West Gate to enter the kingdom. The kingdom was obviously different from Snow Mountain City or Lower King City. The streets were spacious and clean, and the buildings were very tasteful and neatly arranged. The specifications were many times higher than other small cities. Red bricks and black tiles, not only did it have an ancient style, but it was also very tasteful. You could even see large buildings with 4 or 5 floors. There were often soldiers patrolling the streets. The pedestrians on the road were dressed in various fashions, and each of them had an extraordinary bearing. It's indeed the capital of Dongyu Nation. It's different from a small place. Lu Chen was like a country bumpkin entering a city. This feels a bit like the Forbidden City. There were no commoners among the people who could stay in the king's city. If the locals were all experts, there would be no problem at all. Even the patrolling soldiers were at the Great Cultivator realm. It was easy to imagine what kind of people lived here. After entering the city through the west and south gates, the roads did not extend in all directions. Most of the areas were sealed off, and there were even more guards patrolling the area. It could be seen that cultivators were probably on the same level as commoners here. They were allowed to enter King's City to trade, but their range of activity was very limited. However, Lu Chen wasn't here to stroll around. He was here to buy things. As long as he walked along the road, he would naturally reach the city center's trading area. At the trading point, commoners and practitioners would bring large amounts of magical beast materials and food ingredients. These were the main goods they could provide. They could only set up stalls on the ground to sell their goods. The shops on the other side were rented by some experts. As for what was sold inside, one would have to go in and take a look to know. Lu Chen bought some rare fresh ingredients in the grocery area. Some dry food was left on the road in case of an emergency. While strolling around, Lu Chen saw that some dragon hunters would take beast cores to the commercial area when they came to the trading area. It seemed that they were not allowed to sell beast cores. They could only sell them to the shops, and then the shops would sell them to others. Naked exploitation. Lu Chen shook his head and sighed. After buying the daily necessities, Lu Chen was ready to go to the shops. He was a cultivator after all, so he wasn't stopped for questioning. He went to a few shops. They were either selling medicinal herbs or elixirs, fashion, cultivation methods, and various materials. Why is there no equipment for sale in the 5th layer? They are all 4th layer items, and the price is so expensive. Lu Chen shook his head and went to the row of shops in front. Beast Core Specialization. Lu Chen glanced at the shop's sign. There seemed to be a lot of people in the shop. When one was unfamiliar with the place, this kind of shop with a lot of people would usually be the first choice. It was either cheap or had rare items. Lu Chen thought for a moment. As long as he didn't encounter the royal family who were fighting for treasures in the royal city, especially the leader, he would be safe. Those people inside shouldn't be from the royal family. He would go in and take a look. There were many magical beast cores on display in the shop, from the first transformation to the fifth transformation. They were clearly divided according to their grades. Lu Chen had taken 7 fifth transformation beast cores last time. His ancient bloodline didn't move at all, so he speculated that the fifth transformation beast cores had little effect on him. If he wanted to buy, he would have to buy something of a higher grade. There were at least 20 to 30 shop assistants in the shop, but they were all busy greeting others. Lu Chen looked for a long time, but no one came. When Lu Chen looked at their badges again, they were all at least grand cultivators. Even the shop assistants were grand cultivators. Were all the shops in the royal city so extravagant? Finally, a shop assistant came. That person was also a 3-star grand cultivator. He looked at Lu Chen's badge and frowned. 7-star wild cultivator. Yes. Do you have any higher grade beast cores here? The shop assistant couldn't help but look at him with contempt. His attitude wasn't as polite as the others. What transformation do you want? Is 3rd transformation enough? 6th to 8th transformation, Lu Chen said directly. 6th transformation. Kid, if you're here to broaden your horizons, don't waste my time. We have many big customers in our shop. I don't have time to play with you. Lu Chen frowned. Hey, you're opening a business. Those who come in are customers. How do you do business? That person was about to leave. Seeing Lu Chen's tough attitude, he sneered. What? You're not convinced? You're a 7-star cultivator. Do you think I can beat you to death when you step out of the shop? You want me to be polite to you? Please take a piss and take a look at your own virtue. Lu Chen was furious. But just as he was about to say something, a large group of people suddenly came in behind him. Seeing these people, the shop assistant, who was a cut above the rest, immediately went up to them and bowed. Wu Wang, you're here. Do you want to buy or sell treasures this time? The leader of the group was a middle-aged man with a short beard. He had a strong body and wore a golden robe. He had sword-like eyebrows and tiger-like eyes. He had an extraordinary aura. I'll offer 26th transformation beast cores and 3 7th transformation beast cores. Let's see what price you're offering, Wu Wang said indifferently with his hands behind his back. Oh, you want to sell treasures? Then please come to the inner room and have a cup of tea. I'll call our boss. No need. I'm in a hurry. You can call your shopkeeper. I'll wait here, Wu Wang said in a tone that brooked no argument. Okay, then please wait a moment. I'll be right back. With that, the shop assistant ran into the inner room. Lu Chen stole a glance at Wu Wang. This guy had his badge blocked, so Lu Chen couldn't see his cultivation level. However, he could see the cultivation levels of the people behind him. 2-star Emperor cultivation. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Was Emperor cultivation a level below Earth cultivation? Based on his current attributes, an Earth cultivation's attributes were probably over 100,000. In other words, their strength was not far from his battle soul's strength. These levels were the highest that Lu Chen had ever seen, but it had nothing to do with what he wanted to buy. 26th transformation beast cores and 3 7th transformation beast cores had attracted so many people. A royal prince had come in person. Lu Chen reckoned that the price would definitely not be low. It was obviously not worth it for him to buy beast cores with a few million spirit stones. It was more practical to leave it for later. Thinking of this, Lu Chen decided to leave. At this moment, a young woman walked in through the door. "Father, what's taking you so long? It takes so long to sell beast cores, and you still have to accompany me to buy them." The girl was about 17 or 18 years old. She rushed in impatiently. When she raised her head, she happened to see Lu Chen walking out. The two of them looked at each other and were both stunned. The girl stared at Lu Chen while Lu Chen was dumbfounded. After a long time, Lu Chen frowned and said in surprise, "Miss, did you get the wrong person? I'm not your father. I can't have a daughter as old as you." "No, I didn't get it wrong." "Ah." Lu Chen's mind was full of question marks. The girl suddenly shouted, "Father, he's a solipsistic cultivator. During the treasure hunt, he was the only one who passed through the heaven-patching divine palm." Lu Chen turned around and saw Wu Wang turn around. "Oh." Wu Wang looked at Lu Chen with a smile that was not a smile. "Today's luck is not bad. Such a fat piece of meat actually delivered itself to your door." Chapter 8:17. 7-Star Wild Cultivator. "That's right, it's you." The girl confirmed Lu Chen's identity once again. In the entire 5th heavenly layer, Lu Chen was probably the only 7-star cultivator who was still a wild man. Lu Chen never imagined that he would be recognized just as he was about to leave. The girl was probably one of the members of the Dong Yu imperial family's team during the treasure hunt. Coincidentally, she saw through Lu Chen's identity. "I didn't expect you to have the guts to come to the royal city." The martial king couldn't believe it. He sneered and turned around. "Humph, I heard you were very arrogant during the treasure hunt. You even dared to talk back to old Qin. TSK, TSK, TSK. Now it seems that you're not arrogant, but stupid." The martial king had reason to doubt Lu Chen's intelligence when he knew that there were people in the royal city who could recognize him. Lu Chen frowned slightly. He glanced at the girl. Speaking of which, according to her identity, she should be called princess or something. "Miss, why do you have to do this?" Lu Chen shook his head. "Don't even think about running. Everyone knows that you have Nuwa's treasure. Hand it over or I'll kill you." The girl looked lively, but she was very fierce. Every time she opened her mouth, she would kill. It probably had something to do with her identity. Lu Chen also knew that it was too late to say anything now. He had been seen in the royal city, and by a martial king at that. It wouldn't be easy for him to leave the Dongyu imperial city today. The martial king's subordinates quickly surrounded Lu Chen. They stared at him, waiting for the martial king's order. The shop assistant who went back to call the shopkeeper hurried to the front hall with an old man. When he saw the situation, he hurriedly ran over. "Martial King, you. Did that person offend you?" After all, the old man was the boss here. He would feel the most heartache if someone attacked here. The shop assistant looked back and saw that the group of Martial King Manor experts were surrounding the kid from before. He was suspicious. How did that kid offend the Martial King Manor's people? However, he didn't need to know the reason. The current situation was very clear. The Martial Imperial Manor was going to make a move. The shop assistant's mind raced. If he could take down this person, then he would be able to protect his shop and the shopkeeper would definitely look at him in a new light. Secondly, the Martial Imperial Manor's experts wouldn't even need to make a move and the Martial Imperial Manor would have a good impression of him. That brat was only a 7-star cultivator. It would be easy for him, a 5-star cultivator, to take him down. Moreover, with his strength, he had the ability to fight those above his level. It was a good opportunity for him to display his strength in front of the various powerhouses. Who knows, he might be able to gain someone's appreciation. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was a good thing with little capital and huge profits. After making up his mind, the clerk suddenly turned around and pounced at Lu Chen, who was standing at the entrance. I've always found you an eyesore. You dared to provoke the martial imperial manor. Today, I'll teach you a good lesson on behalf of the martial imperial manor's elders. Blink ambush. Wild dog, looks like I'll kill you. Lu Chen was also shocked. Was this employee crazy? He doesn't even know that I participated in the treasure hunt. Why is he, a great cultivator, taking the lead when the elders are fighting? He's probably eager to perform meritorious deeds. For the sake of fame, he's blinded by greed. Seeing that my level is low, it's understandable that he wants to snatch the credit. Forget it. If it were any other employee, Lu Chen might have shown mercy. But it just had to be this guy. You find me an eyesore? I find you an eyesore. You're just a snob. Lu Chen snorted coldly and grabbed with one hand. I'm all ears. That person was originally charging at Lu Chen. Who would have thought that the other party wouldn't dodge? Instead, he raised his hand and his speed suddenly increased. Even he himself was shocked. In an instant, he was already in front of Lu Chen. Lu Chen grabbed his neck with one hand and lifted him up. Just now, you said that once we leave the store, you'll beat me to death. Lu Chen sneered. Sorry to tell you, but in my eyes, you're not even comparable to a dog. The pitch-black muzzle pressed against that person's forehead. You, don't be arrogant. Soul and body as one. That person entered the state of soul and body as one. He pressed down on Lu Chen's wrist and was about to hit back. Soul and body as one can't save you. Lu Chen's eyes were cold. If I fall into your hands, I don't know how I'll be killed. So don't blame me for taking your dog life. Godly demon symbiosis. With a boom, a strong spiritual energy erupted from Lu Chen's body. His entire body grew to more than 185 meters tall. His black hair was dyed with frost and turned white. His ordinary appearance instantly changed into a peerless face with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He had a handsome face, long white hair, and a pair of calm and melancholy eyes. If it weren't for the pair of furry fox ears on top of Lu Chen's head, he would definitely be a rare handsome man. The princess standing beside Lu Chen was at the age where she was experiencing her first awakening of love. She was careless and her eyes fell for him. During the treasure-seizing assembly, she wasn't strong enough and could only mix in with the group. From afar, she watched Lu Chen pass through the spiritual energy wall alone. His back was facing her, so she couldn't see his face clearly. But now that she was standing so close to Lu Chen, she was shocked to find out. This man was too handsome. Oh my God, so handsome. Lu Chen's gaze swept over to the princess and shook his head helplessly. Sigh, this world was indeed a world that looked at appearance. Were all women so superficial? In the next second, Lu Chen activated the spiritual energy space cannon. However, he also combined it with the triple door. Triple door. Spiritual energy space cannon. The spiritual energy space cannon was already difficult to lock onto. With the help of the triple door, it was even harder to dodge. The 5 shots hit the shop assistant without any accident. Lu Chen didn't even activate the weapon modification of the ferocious tiger descends the mountain and the triple barrel shot. He only fired 5 consecutive shots, and a series of spiritual energy space cannon blasted the shop assistant. Boom, 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 boom. The shop assistant definitely didn't expect this 7-star wild cultivator to be so strong. He was using the soul-body unification technique to attack the main body. Moreover, he was a 5-star great cultivator and a 7-star great cultivator. Victory was in his hands. It didn't matter even if he was hit a few times. However, when the first spiritual energy space cannon blasted his body, the fierce attack made his mind go blank for a moment. This damage was caused by the main body of a 7-star great cultivator. If it was calculated using the combat value of a level 4, the current power of Lu Chen's spiritual energy space cannon was about 35 million damage without a critical hit. Even if there wasn't a critical hit, 5 shots would cause 160 million damage. However, with Lu Chen's bloodline level, it was impossible for him not to cause a critical hit. 5 shots of spiritual energy space cannon blasted out 500 million damage. A mere great cultivator's war soul was directly killed. And that person's physical body was also beaten to a state of near death. The shop assistant had already smashed through the wall of the shop. The ground beneath him was blasted into a huge pit that was 20 to 30 meters deep. He was lying in the deep pit. After the war soul died, he was forced out of the soul-body unification technique state. He struggled to open his eyes and looked at the man from afar. No, impossible. This is impossible. He hasn't activated the soul-body unification technique. He's just a 7-star, wild cultivator. Before he could finish speaking, he had already breathed his last. Chapter 8:18. Lu Chen had killed a soul-body fusion cultivator on the spot. The surrounding experts couldn't help but frown. Is this guy really a 7-star cultivator? He didn't activate soul-body fusion, which means he attacked with his real body. Occasionally, some people would suppress their cultivation level to hide their strength. However, cultivation levels were based on spiritual power values. As long as one's spiritual power reached a certain level, they would definitely level up. On the other hand, spiritual power also determined the upper limit of the 3 attributes. Therefore, suppressing one's level could only hide a limited amount of strength. Lu Chen was a realm lower than that person, yet he had killed his soul-body fusion cultivator with his real body. The gap between them was simply unbelievable. Even the monarch cultivators couldn't help but frown. King Wu stood in the distance and narrowed his eyes. He killed a 5-star cultivator so easily. His strength is too exaggerated. So, he must have obtained Nuwa's supreme treasure. For Azuras, you must take him down. King Wu shouted. Kid, Nuwa's supreme treasure isn't something someone like you can have. Lu Chen was speechless. His strength had always been like this, and it had little to do with Nuwa's supreme treasure. The primordial divine blood that Nuwa had given him was only one of the conditions for activating the ancient bloodline. Currently, the ancient bloodline hadn't even taken shape yet. It could only increase his attributes by 10%, which was completely negligible. The 4 Azuras were the 4 monarch cultivators under King Wu. They quickly stood in 4 directions around Lu Chen to prevent him from escaping. Kid, your strength is not bad. You can kill a soul-body fusion cultivator with your real body. Unfortunately, you met us. Fortunately, you're only a 7-star cultivator now. If we wait for you to grow, with your ability to surpass levels, we may not be able to subdue you when you reach 7-star earth cultivation. It's not easy to have such strength at such a young age. Unfortunately, too many geniuses have died at the hands of me, evil Martial Azura. You're not the first. Lu Chen looked at the evil Martial Azura indifferently. If you insist on fighting, I can guarantee that you won't have the chance in the future. The evil Martial Azura snorted coldly. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have some strength. This is King City. You won't be able to escape even if you have wings. The shop was too small. As Lu Chen walked out, the other 4 followed closely behind, surrounding Lu Chen at all times. The princess quickly walked to her father's side. The king of Wu glanced at his daughter. The way this girl looked at Solipsistic was obviously not right. This person has a precious treasure on him. I can't let him live. The princess nodded. Although that guy was indeed very handsome and made her heart flutter, in front of Nuwa's most precious treasure, being handsome was not enough to make a living. Father, I don't know what you're talking about. It's your business how you want to deal with it. King Wu smiled faintly. His daughter knew what was important and what was not. The four great asuras under the martial king were evil martial, Buddhist martial, divine martial, and sky martial. They were all at the martial emperor realm. With these four taking action, it should not be difficult to take down the solipsistic. The key was time. This brat had Nuwa's most precious treasure on him. Now that he had appeared in the royal city, it would not be long before the other nobles and even that person from the Tian family arrived. He could naturally protect the treasure in his hands. However, if he could not take it by the time the others arrived, then it would be hard to say. Thinking of this, the martial king shouted, "Evil marshal, don't talk nonsense with him. Hurry up and kill him and take the treasure." Seeing the people from the martial imperial manor making a move, the huge market quickly packed up the stalls and closed the doors. Countless people were watching the battle here. Who is that guy? He actually attracted the four great asuras of the martial imperial manor to attack at the same time. Did you see that just now? That brat killed a 5-star great cultivator without using soul body as one. His strength should also be at the martial emperor realm. Only at the martial emperor realm can the body of an expert defeat soul body as one. What martial emperor realm? Didn't you see his badge? He's a 7-star great cultivator. This is unbelievable. No matter how strong he is, what kind of people are the four great asuras? I'm afraid their ranking in the 5th heaven will not exceed 10,000. Being in the top 10,000 among hundreds of millions of people was already a top existence. I'm afraid you guys don't know that the most frightening thing about the four great asuras is not their individual strength, but their teamwork. Even a top expert would have a headache if they saw the teamwork of these fellow disciples. An insider said. His words shocked the others even more. The four great asuras were actually fellow disciples. For super experts in the top 10,000. When they joined forces, their strength was simply unimaginable. At this moment, the four great asuras on the field activated soul body as one at the same time. The four great asuras' bodies emitted mists of purple, black, red, and green. Their auras suddenly changed. Combined domain, Asura purgatory field. Lu Chen frowned slightly. These four people's domains were a bit special. The Asura purgatory field actually had 4 attributes. After activating it together, no matter who was in the domain, they could enjoy the buffs of the other 3 domains. In other words, the domain's buffs were increased by 4 times. At the same time, Lu Chen was affected by a lot of negative statuses. Attack speed, movement speed decrease, attack, HP decrease, defense decrease, skill cooldown increase, damage over time. Just the negative statuses alone, Lu Chen was stacked more than 20 times. The evil martial Asura crossed his arms and pulled out 2 purple daggers. It's the King of Hell's dagger. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed. It's been a long time since I've seen a dagger out of its sheath. That kid is dead for sure. The King of Hell's dagger is ranked 18th in the Eastern Peak country's divine weapon ranking. It's highly poisonous, and attacks have bleeding, serious injury, and poisoning effects. As long as you're hit, just the bleeding and poisoning effects alone can take your life in a short 10 seconds. It's that strong. Nonsense, why else would it be called the King of Hell's dagger? If the King of Hell wants you to die at midnight, no one will let you live until midnight. The 4 great Asura's weapons were each more ridiculous than the last. Evil Marshal took out the King of Hell's dagger, while Buddhist Marshal took out a Buddhist scripture. This Buddhist scripture wasn't a skill scroll, but a Buddhist seal weapon. Buddhist seals didn't need weapons to attack, but the Dharma Golden Scripture could strengthen them. The Dharma Golden Scripture, ranked 21st in the Eastern Peak Divine Weapon ranking. My God, this is the weapon of Buddhist seals' dreams. Divine Marshal's Divine Marshal Sky Raising Spear, ranked 26th. It's unstoppable, the overlord of weapons. No way, the Divine Marshal Asura took out a weapon too. That's. The clear sky amber sword set. There are 14 of them in total, the only one in the entire server, ranked 10th in the Eastern Peak Divine Weapon ranking. I didn't think I'd see this set of divine weapons. The 4 great divine weapons were unsheathed at the same time, and the weapons of the surrounding low-level players all trembled, as if they were inferior in front of a king. None of the divine weapons in the 4 great Asura's hands were ordinary items. Speaking of which, these brothers were truly outstanding. Kid, aren't you very strong? In front of the 4 of us, I'm afraid you don't even have the confidence to take out your weapon. Evil Marshal looked at Lu Chen arrogantly. Lu Chen's expression was calm as he raised one hand. Wuji, someone said you didn't dare to show your face. Do you think you should take back your face? Chapter 8:19. Lu Chen could feel the resentment of the infinite celestial and demon sword. Lu Chen smiled. Alright, I know you're hungry. Come on out. As Lu Chen slowly raised his hand, a black and white longsword slowly appeared inch by inch from void space. If the King of Hell's dagger, Bodhidharma's golden sutra, divine martial sky-raising spear, and clear sky amber sword were the kings of weapons, then this black and white sword that had never appeared in any of the god weapon lists was the king of weapons. One side of the infinite celestial and demon sword was black, while the other side was silver. 2 different kinds of fog surrounded the sword. The black and white fog floated, but the 2 were clearly separated. When this unknown longsword stood in front of Lu Chen, the 4 great divine weapons emitted a buzzing sound almost at the same time, as if they were facing a great enemy. Even Asura C's wrist was trembling. The 4 of them looked at the sword in shock, their eyes filled with disbelief. What kind of weapon is that? I've never seen it before. Asura Tianwu's clear sky amber sword had a total of 14 swords, each of which was extremely powerful. However, when this sword appeared, the 13 sub-swords involuntarily moved closer to the main sword. Asura Tianwu frowned. He had never seen the amber sword react like this before. What a powerful aura. Even the clear sky amber sword reacted like it's facing a great enemy. It's involuntarily retreating to defend. King Wu's expression turned serious. He had clearly felt his own weapon resonating with the sword. He would only use his weapon when fighting against powerful demonic beasts. Other than a few of his trusted aides, very few people had seen it before. It was not an exaggeration to say that he had retired after accomplishing something. However, just now, the Heaven Battling Tower had reacted so strongly. Although the Heaven Battling Tower was not a god weapon and did not have a weapon spirit, it had been with him for many years. He could feel the excitement of the Heaven Battling Tower, as if it had met a powerful opponent. That kid's weapon is not inferior to my Heaven Battling Tower. It might even be better. King Wu squinted his eyes. The Countess beside Lone Tyrant sucked in a breath of cold air. Lone Tyrant's weapon was actually this powerful. Father, your Heaven Battling Tower is in the top 3, but even the top 2 weapons would only be on par with the Heaven Battling Tower. If that black and white longsword is stronger than the Heaven Battling Tower, then wouldn't it be? King Wu stared fixedly at the white-haired man. It seems that even if he doesn't have Nuwa's supreme treasure on him, it's definitely not a loss for him to keep this sword. Lu Chen looked at the limitless sword and smiled. This guy seemed to be a little angry today. The pressure he was emitting was stronger than usual. It seemed that he was angered by the evil Marshal Asura's words. Alright, Wuji, I'll help you get back at him. Lu Chen raised his head and looked at the 4 Asuras who were glaring at him. Finally, his gaze fell on King Wu, who was not far away. Then, Lu Chen said indifferently, "You can live for another 5 seconds." As soon as these words came out, the surroundings almost exploded. What did he say? He just said to the 4 Asuras and King Wu that they can only live for 5 seconds. Damn, I've never heard such arrogant words in my life. The four Azuras and King Wu are all Emperor-level cultivators. He wants to kill them in seconds. Dream on. He's arrogant just because he has a powerful weapon. Besides, King Wu doesn't even plan to make a move now. How can he kill them in 5 seconds? King Wu was also shocked. Before he could refute, Lu Chen had already made his move. Chaos Element Conversion. Lu Chen grabbed the sword's hilt with one hand. In an instant, the black and white fog completely merged and turned into chaos. Gods and demons coexisted. There was no difference between gods and demons. Black and white were two colors, so why should they be so distinct? At this time, all the negative states on Lu Chen's body were cleared. Chaos spiritual pills were not affected by other domains. Battle God Possession. Demon Transformation. Death Trap. Dragon Blood Boiling. 3 Lives Reincarnation. When facing an expert, Lu Chen's opening moves had become standard. He narrowed his eyes slightly, allowing his white hair to billow in the surging spiritual energy. His eyes were so cold that it made people's hearts turn cold. Do you really want me to make the first move? You have 4 seconds left. The current Lu Chen and the person who had just entered the Beast Pill store were like two different people. You 4, don't underestimate him. After all, he is the only one who can get close to Nuwa's remnant soul. King Wu spoke from behind. Lions and tigers use all their strength to catch a rabbit. You can't be careless. However, what surprised everyone was that King Wu did not look down on Lu Chen this time. Instead, the 4 Azuras took him seriously. The 4 Azuras had followed King Wu for many years and firmly believed in his judgment. At this time, they did not care about the fact that he was a 7-star wild cultivator. They did not enter the soul-body unification state. Their gazes turned serious. Solipsistic, you're really arrogant. How dare you be disrespectful to King Wu? I will take your head in 5 seconds. 2-star Poison Master Astral Form. Evil Marshal was the first to activate the Astral Form technique. The other 3 also entered the Astral Form state. King Wu nodded in satisfaction. Snatching the treasure from millions of people, killing a 5-star great cultivator without entering the soul-body unification state, and holding a divine weapon. This solipsistic was indeed something. Even though King Wu's bloodline rarely fought with others, they often hunted high-level demonic beasts. They had even hunted a 7-transformation demonic beast before. Even 8 tails was only 8 transformation. It was clear that their strength was not to be underestimated. In many battles, King Wu and the 4 Azuras had experienced hundreds of battles. When they were serious, their battle strength would soar. Medicine Master Astral Form, Imperial Sword Astral Form, Martial Path Astral Form, and Buddhist Seal Astral Form. These 4 astral forms are not easy to deal with. Even if they don't attack, you won't be able to touch them. I want to see how you solipsistic will kill my martial imperial manners generals in 5 seconds. King Wu glared at solipsistic. Facing King Wu's question, Lu Chen didn't answer. 3 seconds left. He slowly lowered his head and took a deep breath. He didn't expect to be able to use the technique he just learned so soon. Interesting, even he was a little excited. In fact, when Lu Chen said that he could kill 5 people in 5 seconds, he was hoping that they would use the astral form. If they didn't use the astral form, how could they display the dominance of the divine demon astral form? Divine demon. Astral form. With a boom, the spirit energy around Lu Chen exploded. Immediately after, Lu Chen's eyes turned blood red. His imposing body suddenly became blurry. Even though he didn't move at all, in the eyes of others, he looked like an unstable image. Divine demon astral form. What kind of astral form is that? Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed. I've never heard of this astral form. Look at his figure, are my eyes playing tricks on me? I can't lock on to him. His astral form didn't fuse with any skills or moves, but people can't see it clearly. Chapter 820. Godly Demon Astral Body, Attack Speed, Movement Speed, Skill Release Speed increased by 400%, 5 senses increased by 400%, and the user cannot be targeted by any skills. At this moment, Lu Chen clearly felt that the world in his eyes had changed. The fine dust in the wind seemed to have slowed down several times, and the people around him seemed to have entered slow motion. Every frown and smile on their faces, and every movement of their bodies, was several times slower. Spiritual energy. The surrounding spiritual energy was more clearly perceived. The astral bodies of the four Asuras were no longer undetectable. Heavenly Eye. Lu Chen activated his Heavenly Eye at the same time. This time, the four Asuras had nowhere to hide. After being observed by him, the astral bodies of the four Asuras underwent drastic changes. Originally, their astral bodies were fused with the surrounding spiritual energy and were operating smoothly, but suddenly, the spiritual energy around them became restless. Was this the perception ability of the godly demon astral body? Even Lu Chen was shocked. As for the four Asuras, just as the solipsistic astral body entered, they suddenly felt a strong repulsive force. The surrounding spiritual energy was forcing them out of their astral bodies. A moment later, the four of them appeared at the same time and looked at each other in disbelief. What's going on? Why did my Imperial Sword astral body fail? This situation has never happened before. Even when we encountered the 7 magical beast generals, they were so powerful, but they couldn't force us out of our astral bodies. Lu Chen understood one thing at this moment. Sometimes, when the astral body was attacked, it would be forced out of its astral body. The root cause was that the user's fusion with the surrounding spiritual energy was disrupted. The godly demon astral body used this method to directly disrupt the surrounding spiritual energy, causing the opponent to be unable to enter the astral body state. Although the principle was simple, just by locking onto the opponent, it could directly disrupt the surrounding spiritual energy for one's own use. This in itself was the most terrifying effect. 2 more seconds. Lu Chen suddenly spoke very quickly. After all, no matter what he did now, he would be 4 times faster than others. He didn't know if the others understood. Even if they didn't, it didn't matter because Lu Chen had already made his move. Tiger descends the mountain. Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. The current Sacred Lotus Sword Heart was no longer just 1080 swords. 2160 swords. Under the effects of the godly devil astral body, Lu Chen's attacks were even faster than before, to the point where they could not be seen clearly. The sword move was executed in a single breath. In a single second, 2000 sword chis had appeared before the 4 of them in the blink of an eye. This speed had already surpassed the reaction time of humans, so much so that the 4 martial emperors were unable to dodge in time. So fast. Sword Light Buddha Protection. Spiritual Energy Shield. The 4 of them activated their shields. However, Lu Chen simply did not need to continue watching. He had already determined that these 4 people could not possibly block the Saint Sword Lotus Heart. Rapid movement. In the next moment, his figure moved. Before the first wave of sword chi even hit the 4 great Asuras, he was already standing in front of King Wu. King Wu couldn't believe his eyes. This guy's speed was unimaginably terrifying. It was faster than the sword chi, no, it was faster than the eyes. Relying on his many years of battle experience, King Wu subconsciously activated Soul Body as one. However, just as he activated Soul Body as one, a cold sword had already touched his throat. Lu Chen had one hand behind his back and the godly devil limitless sword in his right hand. The tip of the sword was pressed against King Wu's throat. Suddenly, there was the sound of a large amount of spiritual energy exploding behind him. Facing the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart, the 4 great Asuras were already on the verge of death. Each of them had to face more than 500 swords. What skill is this? Why is the damage so high? My shield. When the shield shattered, the next fierce attack had just begun. The remaining few hundred swords were like wild beasts charging towards the four great Asuras. What surprised Lu Chen was that based on the rate of their war soul's HP loss, their war soul's HP should be around 1.8 or 1.9 billion. One had to know that Lu Chen's physique of 2 million plus various buffs only had a little more than 100 million HP. How could these people's war souls have so much HP? Lu Chen was suspicious. However, Lu Chen quickly remembered. The key was the combined domain, Infernal Azura Field. The four domains seemed to have the effect of increasing one's HP. When the four effects were stacked, it became extremely terrifying. Each domain increased one's HP by 1-fold. 4 domains meant 16 times. Since their main bodies could cultivate to the earth cultivation realm, it meant that they had been in the 5th heavenly layer for several decades, or even longer. The fortuitous opportunities in the 5th heavenly layer would not be lesser than any other heavenly layer. On the contrary, the fortuitous opportunities in the 5th heavenly layer were more and more terrifying. These people were the four great Asuras of the mighty God Martial Imperial Mansion. They had endless resources and opportunities at their fingertips. After a long period of accumulation, it was understandable that their war souls were stronger than others. In addition to the Infernal Azura Field's perverse bonus, it created such a terrifying amount of HP. However, against the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart, 500 million HP was nothing. Moreover, each of them had to face several hundred swords. Without a war soul with 10 billion HP, it was impossible to resist. Ah! Several screams came from behind. The four great Asuras were killed by the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. In the last second, Lu Chen's sword stopped at King Wu's throat. You have one more second. Lu Chen looked coldly at King Wu. At this time, other than shock, there was no other reaction in King Wu's eyes. Solipsistic said that he had 5 seconds, but in reality, it was not even 3 seconds. When the four great Asuras were killed, Huang Xiaolong had already taken control of his own life and death. You, how can you be so fast? Your astral body, what exactly is? King Wu stuttered in fear. Don't kill my father. The princess was crying at the side. Lu Chen's gaze swept over the princess, who was crying like a person. But in her heart, she did not dare to hope that the solipsistic would be merciful. The scene of how the shop assistant died was still vivid in her mind. The solipsistic did not give her a chance at all. That was just a passerby who had no enmity with him, yet he could be so ruthless. What's more, her father and the others wanted to snatch the solipsistic's treasures. How could he be merciful? He had already said that he would kill the 5 of them. If he really stopped, wouldn't he be going back on his words? The scene suddenly became terrifyingly quiet. The people did not have time to marvel at the solipsistic's terrifying strength. Now, everyone's eyes were fixed on the infinite divinity and demon sword. Would he stab down with this sword? However, at the last second, Lu Chen put down his sword. Lu Chen shook his head. Although you want to kill me and steal my treasures, you are still considered honorable. Consider it as me going back on my words. I won't kill you today. King Wu could not believe his ears. This guy actually did not attack. Lu Chen also did as he said. He put down his sword, turned around, and walked out of the trading market. Wait. You really won't kill us? If you didn't have the strength, perhaps we would have already killed you, and your treasures would have been taken away by us. You're just going to leave like this? Perhaps for King Wu, living like this was actually a disgrace. Lu Chen looked back at King Wu in astonishment and could not help but snort. You really said what I wanted to say. If it was any other time, I would have already killed you. But now. Lu Chen sighed, "You have the strength to hunt 7th rank magical beasts. Perhaps you will be of some use in the future." King Wu was completely confused. He did not understand what the solipsistic meant. The reason why he survived was because he hunted 7th rank magical beasts. Useful in the future. What did he mean? Alright, tell your daughter to stop crying. Also, quickly drag your 4 subordinates back to save them. Remember, don't provoke rogue cultivators in the future. After saying that, Lu Chen disappeared in a flash. There were thousands of people around, but none of them could catch up with his figure. Chapter 821. Not long after Lu Chen left, a large number of experts arrived and saw the mess. King Wu was scared out of his wits. No one knew if the 4 Azuras were dead or alive. The nobles had just arrived, but they had to face such a shocking result. What's going on? How could the 4 Azuras? A beauty in a white silk robe flashed and landed in the field. In terms of appearance, there was a hint of heroic spirit between her brows, but it didn't hide her devastatingly beautiful face. She had both the gentleness of a woman and the valiance of a warrior. Between her actions, there was a hint of the majesty of a ruler. When this person appeared, the nobles who arrived all bowed, but she waved her hand, indicating that they didn't need to do so. She walked in front of King Wu and looked strangely at the silent King Wu. This guy actually didn't greet her when he saw her. It was her business whether or not others had to greet her, but it was the etiquette of a subject. Ahem. She coughed slightly, reminding King Wu not to forget the etiquette. King Wu recovered from his shock. Seeing the person in front of him, he quickly bowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty." If Lu Chen was here, he would probably be shocked. The ruler of the Eastern Peak country was actually a woman. However, it wasn't impossible. Jiutian didn't care about gender, only strength was respected. The constitution of a woman was slightly weaker than a man, but it was only in the early stage. In terms of numbers, there was only a difference of a few points. Now that she had leveled up, the difference could be ignored. In this way, there was almost no difference between men and women. If a woman was talented, there was no reason for her to lose to a man. It was only natural that a woman would be the ruler of the Eastern Peak country. The person who came was the current ruler of the Eastern Peak country, Kong Luoyao, known as the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor frowned and shook her head. She rarely saw King Wu so distracted. Looking at the scene, the 4 Azuras were dying. It was obvious that the martial imperial manor had been defeated. She was different from others. Someone had already reported to her that the solipsistic had appeared in the imperial city, so she could roughly guess what had happened. "Get up. That solipsistic is so strong." The martial king was a bit absent-minded. His eyes didn't meet hers as he said blankly, "Yes, he's very strong." He didn't use soul body as one, but he still insta-killed the 4 Azuras. In 3 seconds, he killed 4 people and captured me. I didn't even have time to react. The Jade Emperor's expression did not change. "You've underestimated him. This is not your style." "You're right," said the Jade Emperor. "I didn't underestimate them. After fighting demonic beasts for a long time, everyone in the martial imperial manor knows that they can't underestimate their opponents in a battle of life and death." The 4 great Azuras opened their celestial bodies, but after that person opened his celestial body, he directly caused Evil Marshal and the others to lose their celestial bodies. Oh. There was actually such a thing. What celestial body does he have? Jade Emperor asked. I've never heard of his astral body before. It's the godly devil astral body. He didn't rely on any skills and used it directly. After using it, not only did the 4 Azura celestial body lose its effect, but his speed also increased greatly. He was so fast that we couldn't even lock onto his figure. Within 5 seconds, no, within 3 seconds, he killed the 4 Azuras and captured me. The Jade Emperor narrowed her eyes. He defeated 5 great Emperor cultivators in 3 seconds. That's right. His strength is not below yours. The Jade Emperor nodded. Perhaps he obtained Nuwa's supreme treasure and increased his strength. However, the martial Imperial Manor wanted to kill and steal the treasure. Since he won, why didn't he kill all of you? I don't know, but in the end, he said that the martial Imperial Manor often hunted demonic beasts and that it might be useful in the future, so he let us go. I guess he valued our experience in fighting demonic beasts. However, this is only my guess. I lost because I didn't understand what he meant. The Jade Emperor's brows furrowed even tighter. What was this solipsistic man trying to do? During this period of time, the Eastern Peak Nation and even the entire Fifth Heaven seemed to be in turmoil. Nuwa's supreme treasure, the attack on the spirit veins, and the appearance of a powerful expert, all these signs seemed to be confirming the prophecy of the Imperial Oracle. Natural phenomena and tribulations are coming, and fortune and misfortune will come at random. The path of the stars is full of confusion and no way out. The Jade Emperor murmured, repeating the prophecy of the Imperial Oracle. Interestingly, the last sentence of the prophecy gave people a feeling of ambiguity. Did it mean that there was no way out or a chance of survival? It was hard to tell. Has that extremely ominous prophecy started to come true one by one? The Jade Emperor suddenly looked up at the Martial King and asked anxiously, where did that man go? The Martial King didn't know what to do. I don't know. He was too fast. I didn't have time to activate my divine eyes. The Jade Emperor looked back at the city gate. She knew that the solipsistic man was at the Cultivation Master realm. It was very likely that he went back the way he came, which meant that he might have left from the west gate. You know about the divination of the gods. That man is in the middle of the prophecy. Perhaps he is related to the divination. I will leave for a while. You and King Wen will take care of the court. The Jade Emperor's figure flashed and disappeared. The Martial King looked ahead blankly. Is the Jade Emperor going to take action personally? She hasn't taken action personally for more than 100 years. Even she is going to take action. The Martial King frowned. The fifth layer of heaven is really going to change. Lu Chen had already left King City. He was now walking on the official road towards the west. It was too boring to travel alone. Lu Chen brought along Rhubarb, Furry, Little Green, and Xiao Min. With more companions, he wouldn't feel so lonely. Boss, did I see wrongly? You didn't kill the Martial King and the others? Xiao Min jumped up and down. It was rare for her to come out, so she was naturally the happiest. Lu Yi said with a smile, I guess, boss thinks that if the Devil Beast Sovereign leads the Devil Beast army to sweep through the fifth layer of heaven again, these experts might be of some use. But they don't look like good people. Xiao Min said with a little unconvinced. Lu Chen smiled faintly. Is the ice god a good person? Xiao Min was stunned. When the ice god died, hundreds of thousands of people were buried with him. At least he wasn't a benevolent ruler. The strength of the Devil Beast Sovereign is really hard for me to imagine. After this rebirth, it has been accumulating strength in secret. When it reaches adulthood, it will be very terrifying. The words that the Eight Tails said before it died, I don't think it's that simple. Lu Chen said. If the Devil Beast Sovereign invades again, even if I can deal with the Devil Beast Sovereign, what about the other Devil Beasts? The strength of the seventh or eighth transformation is very terrifying for ordinary people. The Martial King and the others make money by hunting Devil Beasts. They may have more experience than ordinary experts. When the Devil Beast Sovereign invades, even if he is greedy and unscrupulous, he is still a prince. When the time comes, they are likely to become the backbone of the defense of the Dongyu country. If sparing their lives can save tens of thousands, or even more civilians, then what's the harm in letting them go? After Lu Chen's explanation, Xiao Min understood Lu Chen's intention. It turns out that boss is still thinking about those civilians. Boss, why did you release such a terrible thing as soon as you came to the fifth layer of heaven? Lu Chen said helplessly. I also didn't want to. This matter is not my fault, it's Rhubarb's. Rhubarb looked up at Lu Chen. Woof woof woof. Didn't you ask me to find the treasure? Can't I find the spirit vein? The little furball hugged Rhubarb's neck and squeaked to help Rhubarb. Lu Chen looked at the two little guys with a smile. When did the relationship between the two of you become so good? Rhubarb, don't forget that the little furball still wants to eat your 9 revolutions golden crow mirror. Lu Yi shook her head and looked at these guys. Your relationship is so complicated. Chapter 822. Lu Chen's celestial devil astral body took 15 days to recover. With such a big thing happening in King City, it was better for him to leave as soon as possible. According to the route, Lu Chen planned his itinerary. This way, I can pass through 7 cities and resupply on the way. I can also take on some commissioned missions to earn some cash coupons. Speaking of cash coupons, Lu Chen had a headache. It was indeed inconvenient to be an unaffiliated cultivator. There was no fixed income for cash coupons. The surroundings of King City were not safe, so Lu Chen sped up. 2 days later, Lu Chen arrived at the first transit city and took on the task of escorting a caravan. The reward was not high. The caravan found a total of 5 cultivators. After escorting them to the nearest city, each person would be given 300 cash coupons. It was not much, but the price of goods in the Dongyu nation was indeed tight. 3 spirit vein mines had been destroyed and stopped mining, causing the cash coupons to be extremely scarce. 3 days later, the escort mission was completed. Lu Chen took on another escort mission in the same city and went to the next city. 10 days later, Lu Chen arrived at Jinan City. His next stop was Snow Mountain City. By the way, Shui and Granduncle are near Snow Mountain City. I don't know if I will have a chance to meet them after leaving Dongyu Nation. I should go and see them. This time, Lu Chen gave up on accepting missions and went to the Snow Mountain region alone. The further northwest he went, the colder the weather became. The previous snow mountain had been destroyed, and the road was impassable. However, the surrounding mountains were still covered in snow all year round. When he entered the Snow Mountain region, it was a field of white snow. After a day's journey, Lu Chen saw that it was getting late. He set up a bonfire under a rock and prepared to camp. Little Green and Xiao Min were ghost pets after all. When Lu Chen did not use his fighting soul, they could only come out for a short while. Only Furball and Rhubarb had their own bodies and could accompany Lu Chen all the time. These 2 guys were playing around in the snow. Lu Chen was too lazy to care about them. He was busy cooking dinner. Lu Chen and Rhubarb were probably tired of eating grilled fish every day. In the previous city, Lu Chen had also bought some meat. At this time, he took out a snow rabbit, processed it, and skewered it on a branch to barbecue. Barbecue without seasoning was soulless. Lu Chen naturally wouldn't treat himself unfairly. Oil, cumin, chili, and some salt. I feel that if I go back and open a barbecue restaurant, even old Sue's barbecue restaurant won't have as good a business as mine. Lu Chen took a deep breath, and a rich aroma wafted into his nose. Rhubarb was no longer playing around with Furball. It stood beside Lu Chen and stared at the barbecue with eager eyes. It was so anxious that it was about to cry. Don't worry, the heat isn't right yet. Let's barbecue for a while more so that the flavor will enter. It's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Take a bite, tsk, that taste. Lu Chen said as he swallowed his saliva. Oh, I still have some Chenliang wine. At this moment, Big Yellow suddenly realized something and barked as it looked at the night sky in the distance. Lu Chen raised his head and saw a woman in white walking over. It's so late at night. Where did such a beauty come from in the wilderness? Lu Chen suddenly frowned. Of course, in the Jyotian wilderness, Lu Chen instinctively increased his vigilance when meeting strangers. The woman walked over and her gaze stopped on Lu Chen for a few seconds. No one knew what she was thinking. Miss, you. Lu Chen found that this woman had a badge on her chest, but it was covered with a layer of fog. It seemed to be the effect of some kind of rune, which made him unable to see the other party's cultivation level. Miss, is there something you need? The woman's slightly vigilant gaze seemed to relax. What did you call me? Lu Chen was a little confused. Was it wrong for him to call her Miss? What else should he call her? You didn't tell me your name. If I don't call you Miss, you didn't tell me your name. That person frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, it seemed to make sense. Interesting. Hey, what level of cooking master are you? The woman asked. 9 stars. What's wrong? Nothing. The rabbit meat you roasted seems to be very fragrant. It's different from the other 9-star cooking masters I know. The woman's gaze finally moved away from Lu Chen and fell on the roasted meat. Oh, I added some barbecue seasonings from my hometown. It's different from the usual recipes. Lu Chen breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the other party was attracted by his roasted meat. Hey, you can't be thinking about my roasted meat, right? Lu Chen said. Rhubarb can eat at least 2/3 of it. There's no share for you here. The woman looked at the rhubarb dog beside Lu Chen with surprise. He actually warned me in order to leave food for a dog. This guy really has guts. The aroma of the roasted meat had already spread. That tempting smell made people unable to help but swallow their saliva. Speaking of which, I really haven't walked around alone for a long time. Usually, I'll leave the trivial matters to others to do. In order to track this guy, she hadn't eaten a full meal for several days. Coming to the Great Snow Mountain, the temperature plummeted, and people became hungry quickly. In addition, this guy's roasted meat was really tempting. The woman really couldn't help it. Why don't I just rob him? Goo goo goo, the woman's stomach failed to live up to her expectations and growled. After Lu Chen and the woman discovered it at the same time, the atmosphere became a bit awkward. Are you hungry to this extent? Finally, Lu Chen sighed. Forget it, forget it. I'm not very hungry. You guys eat. Come on. Lu Chen cut a piece of thigh meat and handed it to the woman. Looking at the rest of the rabbit meat, he gave it all to Rhubarb with a heartache. The woman took the branch and gently took a bite. Suddenly, a strange taste spread on the tip of her tongue. With a bite, the delicious meat filled her taste buds. This kind of satisfying feeling made people forget to leave. In a state of hunger, ordinary food is a delicacy, not to mention such a unique delicacy. The woman widened her eyes and looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Delicious. After saying that, she couldn't wait to take another bite. Lu Chen smiled. Look at you being so impatient. Eat slowly. Rhubarb's side was absolutely sweeping away the food. Seeing this, even the little furball was greedy. This guy who didn't like dead things actually forcefully snatched a piece of meat from Rhubarb to taste it. The 3 guys were eating, one uglier than the other. Lu Chen was really hungry and helplessly took out another fish to roast. Look at your table manners. I originally said I wouldn't eat. However, after the fish was roasted, the woman finished eating the rabbit leg and looked at Lu Chen eagerly. No way, you're still not full. The woman eagerly nodded. I've been hungry for several days. This. Forget it, I'll give it to you. Is that wine you're drinking? The woman was still not satisfied with the roasted fish. Her gaze fell on the wine glass in Lu Chen's hand. At this point, there was no need to say anything more. Lu Chen tactfully handed the wine glass to the woman. Half an hour later, after eating and drinking to their fill, Rhubarb and the little furball fell asleep. Lu Chen looked at the woman. "You're still not leaving?" The woman wiped her mouth, her face slightly red. Her pair of sparkling eyes looked at Lu Chen and her voice was slightly drunk. "I'm a little scared in the snow mountain alone. Can I go with you?" Chapter 823. Lu Chen did not directly agree. He slightly narrowed his eyes and his gaze fell on the woman's chest. In fact, it fell on her badge. "What, are you afraid that I will eat you?" Seeing that Lu Chen did not seem to be ready to agree, the woman looked at Lu Chen with a smile. Lu Chen smiled. "You don't say, I am a little scared. I have seen so many people, and some people hide their badges, but your method of hiding is different from them. Usually, who would hide their rank? Either they have a special identity, or they are a super master. Judging from your method, no matter what your identity is, your strength should not be weak." Lu Chen put away his various spices and said, "I think your outfit is not ordinary. In this wilderness, a beautiful woman like you is traveling alone and deliberately hiding your identity. You should not be simple. You are full and have the strength to walk. You should go, I will not keep you." The woman listened to Lu Chen's analysis with interest and did not panic. "I didn't expect your mind to be so clear. If I am not clear, I am afraid I would have died long ago." Lu Chen lightly said. "Well, even if I hide something from you, but I can guarantee that I am not a bad person." "Ouch, my head hurts, the alcohol is coming up." With that, the woman staggered and then directly fell to the ground. He really did not expect that she would use this trick. Lu Chen's face collapsed. Sure enough, it was useless to reason with a woman. "In Zhoutian, you can also pick up corpses." Lu Chen glanced at the woman lying in the snow. This woman was really beautiful. Her skin was as white as snow, and it looked soft and tender in the snow. Should I leave her here? Lu Chen wanted to leave several times, but in the end, he gave up. Chenliang wine was a famous good wine in Dongyue country. The wine was mellow and went down the throat, but the alcohol was really strong. It was the same as drinking too much and getting drunk was the same. This woman drank no less than him. He was dizzy, so she should be the same. If she was left here alone, she might freeze to death. After thinking for a while, Lu Chen stood up shakily and dragged the woman onto his animal skin blanket. He covered her with the blanket and added some firewood to the bonfire. Then, he took out a spare blanket and leaned against the rock wall to rest. "Furball, Rhubarb, stop messing around. It's time to rest." Rhubarb curled up beside Lu Chen and transformed. The little furball burrowed into Lu Chen's clothes and gradually fell asleep. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the sky had already darkened. Lu Chen hurriedly shook his head to clear his head. The fire on the pile of firewood was much smaller, but the woman was still lying there, sleeping soundly. Lu Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He stuffed the little furball in his arms into Rhubarb's arms and got up to boil water. It didn't take long for Rhubarb to wake up. This guy seemed to have endless energy. When he woke up the little furball and the two went to the side to meditate on the 9 revolutions golden crow mirror. When Lu Chen was done, he glanced at the woman and found that her eyes were open. She was lying on her side with one hand supporting her head, looking at him in a daze. She had been in a high position for many years. Every day, she lived in luxury and was admired by thousands of people. But now, she spent a simple night with this man in the snow. The sky was dim, and the man was busy boiling water, while she was lying in a warm bed. Was this the life of an ordinary person? It was simple and plain, but it had a different flavor. What was more interesting was that the person who spent the night with her was the solipsistic man she had been tracking. The guy who got the treasure and injured the martial king. You're awake. Lu Chen brought some hot water over. Drink some hot water to wake up your head. When the woman was lying on her side, her long hair was scattered. Lu Chen glanced at her and was stunned. This woman lying on the bed like this, it was too easy to let one's imagination run wild. What are you looking at? The woman looked at Lu Chen strangely with a pair of big eyes. It seemed that no one dared to stare at her like this for a long time. But now she didn't want to pursue it. Nothing. Lu Chen turned his head and looked at the fire. The woman smiled and sat up. She held the hot water and drank 2 mouthfuls. Turn around, I'll change my clothes. Ah. I can't wear the same set of clothes every day, right? Lu Chen knew that women liked to buy clothes. After all, he had a sister. But the problem was that this was the 5th layer of heaven. If she wanted to change, she had to change her equipment or clothes. He only had 3 sets of clothes. One of them was a couple set that he hadn't worn yet. As for the other 2 sets, he mostly wore lonely shadow fishing. Occasionally, he would wear wild blood sword god during battle. But this woman seemed to wear 1 set every day. How extravagant was this? However, this was someone else's business after all. Lu Chen didn't ask much and turned around. Tell me when you're done. A soft sound came from behind him. Lu Chen felt very conflicted. This guy was drunk last night, so be it. Now that he was sober, he wouldn't sneak attack him, right? At this moment, Rhubarb ran back. It wasn't afraid of being scolded at all. It stared straight at the woman changing her clothes. With Rhubarb watching, Lu Chen felt relieved. He didn't know if Rhubarb did it on purpose, but the 9 revolutions golden crow mirror fell in front of Lu Chen. For Lu Chen, this mirror was a blurry bronze mirror. Now, there was a graceful figure swaying in the mirror. The point was that the woman was really changing her clothes. She took off the spinning shawl, took off the coat, and took off the inner lining. Although the mirror was blurry, if you looked carefully, you could still see the perfect figure, the enchanting figure, and the slender thighs. However, the other party seemed to be very fast. It was estimated that she had mastered the skill of changing clothes often. Soon, she changed into a light blue dress. Hey, have you seen enough? Unknowingly, the woman had changed her clothes and walked behind Lu Chen. Do you know that peeping at me changing clothes is a capital offense? You're actually holding a mirror and looking at it so brazenly. Believe it or not, I'll dig out your eyes. Lu Chen turned his head and wiped the blood from his nose. Ahem, I didn't see anything. Also, this mirror isn't mine. It's his. Lu Chen pointed at Rhubarb. Rhubarb quickly ran away with the 9 revolutions golden crow mirror. The main culprit absconded. The woman rolled her eyes at Lu Chen. Although what she said just now was quite scary, like digging out one's eyes was a capital offense, but now it seemed that she couldn't find any actual evidence of Lu Chen's crime, so she could only give up. After changing into a blue dress, the woman had a different style. She sat on a stone next to the fire. Her dress fell on the snow, like a blooming blue lotus. I don't know where I'm going now. I see that you're also alone. Why don't we go together? The woman looked at Lu Chen. I'm going to a very far place. You can't always follow me. Lu Chen said. Then I'll just follow you for a while. You can rest assured that I won't give you any trouble, except for cooking. I'm more familiar with the 5th heaven than you are. Chapter 824. The woman's last sentence convinced Lu Chen. He had been in the Dongyu nation for a long time and was somewhat familiar with it. However, he was about to go to the Baisher nation, and he would be unfamiliar with the place. Moreover, this woman was really pleasing to the eye. Lu Chen wasn't really afraid that she would eat him up. At most, he would just keep it to himself. Hey, I'm going to another nation. Are you sure you want to follow me? Lu Chen said. The woman smiled. I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Oh, don't keep calling me, hey. I have a name. I'm Luo Yao. I'm nameless. Luo Yao laughed in her heart. This guy dared to come to the Dongyu kingdom, and he actually knew not to say that he was solipsistic. The two ate some food and went to the village where Shui was. In the evening of the same day, the two of them arrived at this unknown small village. Qian Qiushue and Tai Shu were already waiting for Lu Chen at the village entrance. However, Lu Chen was followed by a woman in blue. Tai Shu, Shui. Lu Chen saw the two and was in a good mood. He greeted them from afar. Tai Shu and Shui couldn't help but look at the woman behind him. However, when they saw the woman's appearance, their eyes were filled with shock. How could it be her? The great emperor of the Eastern Mountain was known to many immortal cultivators who knew of the Jade Emperor. Although no one had seen his lineup, the Jade Emperor had left behind many combat projection stones. They were the most sought-after combat projection stones on the market and were compulsory for many sections. Tai Shu and Shui had been wandering outside for many years and could be considered knowledgeable. How could they not know about the Jade Emperor? Nameless was actually the empress of the Dongyu nation, called Luo Yao. From afar, Luo Yao quietly made a gesture to Tai Shu and Shui to keep quiet. Although the two didn't know the reason, they could only follow the Jade Emperor's instructions and try not to appear too shocked. Lu Chen had already arrived in front of the two. Tai Shu, Shui, how are you doing here? Not long after, Luo Yao also came over. Nameless brother, these two are your friends? Nameless. Brother. The Jade Emperor actually called Lu Chen nameless brother. This frightened the Grand Elder and Shui. Lu Chen didn't find anything unusual and said, yes, they are my few friends in the fifth heaven. Senior uncle, Shui, this is Miss Luo Yao. I met her in the Snow Mountain and we traveled together. Nameless, you, how could you bring just anyone? The Grand Elder hesitated. The Jade Emperor's strength was the ceiling of the Eastern Peak Nation. Even in the fifth heaven, she was a top-notch existence. Although Shui had a close relationship with the Ice God and he was the guardian of the Ice God's heart, that relationship had disappeared after the previous incident. The two of them were now ordinary people. Most importantly, the Jade Empress didn't want Nameless to know her identity. Could there be some unknown reason behind this? They couldn't help but worry about Lu Chen. After all, Luo Yao was experienced in dealing with people. She could see their concerns at a glance. She smiled warmly and said, although Nameless brother and I only met by chance, Nameless brother took care of me and helped me get out of the Snow Mountain. For 2 months, I will keep him safe. This sentence was meant for the Grand Uncle and Shui. She was promising them that within 2 months, not only would she not hurt Lu Chen, but she would also ensure his safety. In exchange, she hoped that they would keep this a secret. Shui suddenly said, what about 2 months later? Luo Yao smiled slightly. We are only companions for a short time, not immortal companions. How can I protect him for a lifetime? But I can be sure that Luo Yao will never hurt Nameless brother. Shui didn't understand the meaning of Luo Yao's words. She wanted to say something, but the Grand Elder understood that Luo Yao wouldn't hurt Nameless brother. But when Lu Chen knew that she was the Jade Emperor, then there was no guarantee. It was a guarantee, but also a threat. The Grand Elder's eyelids twitched. Even if it was for Nameless brother's safety, it seemed that they could only choose to remain silent. He hurriedly pulled Shui and secretly winked at her, telling her not to pursue the matter. He turned to Lu Chen and smiled. Come and sit at home. Aside from the Jade Emperor, the Grand Elder and Shui hadn't seen Lu Chen for a long time. They had already prepared the ingredients. Today, Shui personally cooked and made a table full of dishes for Lu Chen. During the meal, Lu Chen and the others chatted and laughed, toasting each other. Luo Yao, on the other hand, was ignored. However, she also had her own things to do. She lowered her head and ate. The Grand Elder couldn't stand it anymore. How could the Jade Emperor, the East Mountain Sovereign, eat like this? That, Yao. Miss Yao, eat slowly. There are still dishes. Lu Chen smiled. Don't worry about her, Grand Elder. She hasn't had a full meal for several days. Luo Yao took the time to look up and said, you guys just talk about old times. Don't worry about me. This guy didn't regard himself as an outsider at all. During the meal, Lu Chen also said that he was going to the White Lion Nation soon. Although the Grand Elder had traveled extensively in his early years, he only knew a little about the White Lion Nation situation. Nameless, there aren't many people in the White Lion Nation. Most of them are from other races. You also know the strength of the other races. They are much stronger than humans. Lu Chen nodded. That doesn't matter. Anyway, I can roughly know their strength by looking at their cultivation level. Besides, I'm not going there to fight. That's not it. The Grand Elder suddenly said. Let's put it this way. You should know that the strength of spiritual power is definitely the upper limit of the third dimension. However, due to different body structures, the same amount of spiritual power, for example, a human's upper limit of 3 dimensions is 3 times of spiritual power, but a monster's physique is 18 times of spiritual power, while a heavenly devil's strength is 20 times of spiritual power. And some races, the upper limit of 3 dimensions is far beyond that of humans. When Lu Chen heard this, he was surprised that there was such a thing. The human race entered the Jiutian from the first heaven, while some races entered from the second heaven, the third heaven, or even the fourth heaven directly. This is because their war souls inherited part of their physical strength, which is far beyond that of the human race. And at the fifth heaven, this advantage is even more obvious. They are born with an advantage in the battle of the body. Lu Chen frowned slightly. In the previous few heavens, he had already felt the contempt of the other races for the human race. The strength of the other races was indeed stronger. The fifth heaven focused more on the body. The war souls that the human race had painstakingly cultivated could only fight for an hour at most. Therefore, the fifth heaven was actually a serious weakening for the human race. However, the other races might be eager to fight with their body because their body was very strong. The human race can only rely on skills and accumulation to compete with them, the Grand Elder said. Lu Chen nodded, I understand, Grand Elder. I will be careful when the time comes. Sai, I know you are not an impulsive person. I am afraid that if you don't cause trouble, they will provoke you. The other races have despised the human race for a long time. The human race in the Dongyue country is not a big deal, but in other countries, you have to be extra low-key. Lu Chen smiled slightly, Grand Elder, I have always been low-key. This inadvertent sentence made Luo Yao, who was gorging on the side, spit out a mouthful of wine. Low-key? Are you sure you are low-key? Grand-uncle looked at Luo Yao and said seriously, Miss Luo Yao, I hope you can fulfill your promise. With you around, John Doe's safety should not be a problem. But if anything happens to him on the way, although my strength is weak, I will definitely ask you for an explanation. Luo Yao wiped her mouth and looked at the Grand Elder indifferently, I will naturally keep my promise. For 2 months, I will guarantee his safety. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao in surprise. This girl was getting more and more mysterious. But her words seemed to be a little too full. She didn't even know what she was going to do. Chapter 825. In the evening, the grand-uncle arranged for Lu Chen and Luo Yao to stay in the guest house next door. The snow-covered village looked especially peaceful under the starry sky. Lu Chen sat on the dome roof and looked at the igloo that was lit by fire and extinguished one by one. It was snowing quietly. Snowflakes fell quietly from the sky. Tomorrow morning, there would be piles of snow in front of each house. Lu Chen leaned on Rhubarb. Rhubarb, if I ever retire, living here will be a kind of enjoyment. Footsteps came from behind. Lu Chen looked back. It was Shui. Shui sat beside Lu Chen. She had been busy for a long time and didn't have time to chat with Lu Chen. Nameless brother, the grand-uncle and I will leave this place in spring, Shui suddenly said. You're leaving? Lu Chen looked at Shui in surprise. In the snowy night, under the hazy starlight, Shui's side profile was so perfect that it seemed unreal. Shui lowered her head and smiled helplessly. The current me has nothing to do with the ice god, but I'm still a native of the fifth heaven. I've seen too many of the natives' tragic experiences. At that time, I was the vessel of the ice god's heart and couldn't do anything. But now, I can truly live for once. I will become stronger for them. Lu Chen was quite gratified. Perhaps this was his original intention for saving Shui. Live for yourself. Lu Chen smiled. Shui, I believe you will become very strong in the future. Nameless brother, you must be careful when you go to the White Lion Nation. Also, that friend of yours. Although I don't know her purpose, you must be careful. She's not an ordinary person. Lu Chen smiled. I've already seen some things from your and the grand-uncle's reactions during the day. Since you didn't say anything, you must have your reasons. Don't worry. Sometimes, after being separated for so long, there was a lot to say, but when they really met, they didn't know what to say. But for true friends, even if the two of them didn't speak and just looked up at the starry sky, they still wouldn't feel awkward. Unknowingly, perhaps because Shui was tired, she leaned her head on Lu Chen's shoulder. Lu Chen turned his head to look at Shui, smiled gently, and then continued to look at the stars. Not far away, Luo Yao looked at the two silhouettes under the starry sky in a daze. The closer she got to the prey, the more she realized that this solipsistic was different from what she had imagined. Was he really the person who defeated the 5 experts of the martial imperial manor in 3 seconds? If he hadn't seen the battle with his own eyes, he wouldn't have been able to tell. He could play with the children in the village and chat with the mortals who were worthless in his eyes about their boring daily lives. The Grand Elder and Shui, one was an earth cultivator, and the other was a grand cultivator. They were at such a low level, but he seemed to be friends with them for many years. Solipsistic, I really can't see through you. The next morning, Lu Chen didn't say goodbye to the Grand Elder and Shui, and set off with Luo Yao. In 2 days, they would cross the border of the Dongyu nation and enter the Baisha nation. Luo Shui had changed into another set of clothes today. She was wearing a pink magician's robe, sexy with a hint of playfulness. This woman could really wear any kind of style. Aren't you going to say goodbye to your friends? I already said goodbye to them yesterday. There's no need to say goodbye in person. Lu Chen didn't slow down his pace. What are you going to the Baisha nation for? To look for something. Lu Chen said ambiguously. Luo Yao also knew that he wouldn't tell her everything, so she didn't ask in detail and changed the topic. Nameless, do you know about the recent prophecies about the fifth heaven? I'm not interested in those things. Lu Chen said directly. Many of the oracle's prophecies will come true. Why don't you believe them? Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh. There was once an oracle who said that I would die, and then I killed her. If she was so good at prophecy, why didn't she guess that she would die? Luo Shui almost vomited blood. This guy was ruthless. He killed an oracle directly. Although the oracles couldn't be fought, every country treated them like treasures. Yet, this guy killed the oracles just because he didn't like what he said. Actually, oracles can't see their own fate, Luo Yao said. Lu Chen thought for a moment. He didn't think of this possibility at first, but then he shook his head. He had seen the Earth 14 years later, and in that Earth, he was trapped in the whirlpool world. However, he had now come out of the whirlpool world. If such an ending could be changed, what was the point of prophecy? I have the final say in my fate. No one else can predict my future. Luo Yao frowned slightly. You have quite a personality. Then, do you know about the recent attack on the Dongyu Nation's spirit veins? Speaking of this question, Lu Chen couldn't help but slow down a little. What do you know? Luo Yao shook her head. The culprit acted too quickly. From the attack to the spirit veins being robbed, it took less than 10 minutes. So I speculated that this was definitely not done by humans. Only demonic beasts can do it. They will shatter people and spirit stones, mix them into a liquid and swallow them, and use them to increase their strength. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao in surprise. Her conclusion was the same as his. However, Luo Yao thought that it was a group of demonic beasts acting together, and Lu Chen knew more about it. He now speculated that this matter was most likely done by demonic beast sovereign alone. Now that all the spirit stone mines in the Dongyu Nation are sealed, I guess those unknown demonic beasts might go to other countries, Luo Yao said. Lu Chen didn't express his opinion on this. In his opinion, it didn't matter which country it went to. Anyway, that guy was growing rapidly in this terrifying way. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to stop its growth in time. He didn't know what kind of terrifying existence he would have to face in the future. By the way, do you know about the 5 ancient spirit veins? Since this woman was not simple, Lu Chen naturally wouldn't let go of the opportunity to inquire about it. That's too old. A great war broke out thousands of years ago. Many ancient books were destroyed in that catastrophe. It's very difficult for people to get information about the ancient spirit veins from ancient books, Luo Yao said. Unless it's an old monster that has lived for thousands of years, who knows? Those spirit veins have already disappeared. Why are you asking about this? Lu Chen smiled. History has always been my favorite subject. The two of them chatted perfunctorily. These 2 days were not boring at all. 2 days later, Lu Chen and Luo Yao finally crossed the border of the Dongyu Nation and entered the Baisher Nation. On the east side of the Baisher Nation were dwarves, beasts, elves, and some other races that had a good relationship with the human race. Along the way, they often saw caravans of these races coming and going between the two nations to sell goods. That's strange. These races shouldn't be weak. Why didn't they seize control of the nation? Lu Chen asked, puzzled. It's a matter of habit. Luo Yao answered casually. The human race has few strong masters, so they prefer to build up their own forces. These races prefer to work together in small groups. In fact, this is also the reason why the human race has allied with these races. If they encounter a stronger and more united race, the human race won't be able to hold their own for long. Oh, by the way, when I said united, of course, I'm talking about the surface. You know, people like to do things behind the scenes. Luo Yao seemed to have a lot to say about this. We've arrived at the Baisher Nation. The border is still okay. If you go deeper, you'd better keep a low profile. Luo Shui reminded him again. Especially if you encounter the Night Stalker tribe. They have a tradition of hunting humans. Chapter 826. The nocturnal ghosts were a very special race. They were born with spiritual bodies. It was said that the growth of their spiritual power was terrifying. And spiritual power was the most important attribute of the body. Having an advantage in this aspect meant that the nocturnal ghosts had the most unique advantage in cultivation. Because they didn't have a physical body, they would hunt other races and occupy their bodies. Because of this, the nocturnal ghosts couldn't be identified during the day. In theory, any race you met could be a nocturnal ghost. Then why do they like to hunt humans? Lu Chen asked, puzzled. Humans are considered the weakest race, but the heavens seem to feel that this is too unfair to a race. So in the aesthetics of all races, humans are strangely considered to be the most perfect. Luo Yao seemed to be talking about something funny. The nocturnal ghosts are lustful. With a good appearance, it's easy to seduce those lecherous dwarves. What was the use of being good-looking if they were weak? The human race had one of the most useless advantages. Moreover, in the eyes of other races, humans are trash unless they are top-notch experts. This makes it easier for the nocturnal ghosts to hide. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Then how do you distinguish them? It's hard to tell. If you have to talk about a technique, then if you meet someone of the opposite sex, no matter what race they are, and they keep trying to seduce you, you can consider whether or not they are a nocturnal ghost. Lu Chen frowned. Doesn't that mean I can't have any romantic encounters in the Baisha nation? Romantic encounters? Luo Yao rolled her eyes at Lu Chen. You still want to have romantic encounters? You blockhead, even if one is placed in front of you, you won't be able to grasp it. Let's go. Aren't you going to the Magic Eye Grand Canyon? It'll take another 2 days. Passing by a few small towns, Lu Chen rushed into a shop and asked about the situation of the cash withdrawal tickets. Human kid, other than the Spirit Vein mine, the cash withdrawal tickets have long been out of stock. Everyone keeps them in their pockets. Where else can you find them? The dwarf boss said. Lu Chen was extremely depressed. Right now, only the Eastern Peak Nation's Spirit Vein mine had been attacked. However, all the other nations had been wary of danger and had restricted the business of cashing in. The various powers were also like this and had tightly sealed their pockets. Forget it, it seems that it will be difficult to get the cash withdrawal coupons in the short term. Boss, do you have a map of the Magic Eye Canyon? Magic Eye Canyon? Where are you going? That place hasn't been peaceful recently. Lu Chen immediately became alert. What's going on there? The shop owner still took out an electronic map, 20 spirit stones. The Magic Eye Canyon has always been inhabited by powerful magical beasts. This isn't a rare occurrence. After all, the Magic Eye Canyon stretches for thousands of kilometers. Moreover, it has always been active in the center of the canyon. It's not easy to encounter it. However, that fellow seems to have been particularly active recently. Judging from the attacks on the caravans in the past 2 months, its range of activity actually spans the entire Magic Eye Canyon. It seems to have become a little restless. Last time, someone said that it seems to have evolved into the 9th transformation stage. That's not the main point. The main point is that someone said that there's an even more terrifying fellow in the canyon. A few days ago, in broad daylight, the canyon covered the sky and an incomparably huge shadow passed by. No one knows what it is or whether it's in the canyon. In short, if you want to go to the canyon, it's best if you buy this. With that, the shop owner took out a crystal bead. What is this? Night pearl. It can illuminate at night. It said that the 9th transformation fellow doesn't like light. Perhaps it can save your life. 180 spirit stones, the lowest price in town. Including the map, it's 20 spirit stones in total. Deal. Lu Chen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The total price was 200 spirit stones, but he had cut it down to 20 spirit stones. The shop owner actually agreed so quickly. It seemed that he had been cheated again. Before leaving, the shop owner didn't forget to remind him, you have to keep an eye on your woman. Your woman is so beautiful, there must be many people who have their eyes on her, especially the Night Stalker tribe. Lu Chen glanced at Luo Yao who was looking around. This fellow actually didn't explain anything. After leaving the shop, the two of them headed straight for the canyon. At the entrance of the canyon, a large number of people gathered. There were trade caravans, White Lion Nation's army, travelers, and tens of thousands of people from various races. They had even formed a temporary camp. Lu Chen was rather surprised. He didn't see so many people in the small towns he passed by before. Why were there so many people gathered here? 500 people from Tiger King City. Minimum 5-star earth cultivation level. Let's go once everyone is here. There are still 4 days of full moon. Hurry up. 200 people from the regular White Lion Army. Head toward Prairie Fire City. Find the regular White Lion Army and travel together. Head to Prairie Fire City in 3 days. Speed up if you want to go together. Are there any solo experts? Trade caravans will hire experts at a high price to escort us. 3-star earth cultivation level and above. There are also 200 spots available. Pay with spirit stones. See for yourself the remuneration. This was different from the commissioned missions in South Town City. Many people were actually just forming teams to travel. There was no remuneration for this. Only trade caravans would spend money to hire bodyguards. Moreover, Lu Chen noticed that the requirements for these helpers were very high. Those who were earth cultivation level and above would need at least 500 people in a team. Large teams could even have up to 1,000 people. He checked the map that he had just bought. Their destination wasn't too far away. It would only take 2 or 3 days to travel. There was almost no further. Lu Chen speculated that these people wouldn't just go to the few nearby cities. It was possible that they were advancing in segments. They would first go to the next place with more people and then continue their journey. However, there was one thing that Lu Chen didn't understand. They seemed to want to reach their destination on the night of the full moon. They seemed to be in a hurry. What's wrong with the night of the full moon? Lu Chen asked Luo Yao curiously. On the night of the full moon in Magic Eye Valley, the magic eye opens, and the demon appears. Luo Yao said. You don't even know this, and you still dare to come to Magic Eye Valley? Is it the magical beast that the dwarf boss mentioned before? No. Luo Yao knew this like the back of her hand. The boss should be talking about one of the 7 magical beast generals living in the valley, the 8-eyed demon. If what the boss said is true, then it has evolved to the 9th refinement stage and opened its last eye, which is the 9-eyed demon. That thing is not to be trifled with. As for the demon appearing, I don't know what it is exactly. However, I've heard of a legend. There was once an army of 500,000 from the White Lion Kingdom, relying on their strength, marched through the Demon Eye Valley on a full moon night. However, the next day, they found piles of bones in the Demon Eye Valley. There was no lack of high-star emperor cultivation among the 500,000 soldiers. None of them were spared. Lu Chen couldn't help but frown. The night of the full moon in Magic Eye Valley was a little scary, however, Lu Chen's goal was to thoroughly explore Magic Eye Valley. If he didn't see the Magic Eye Valley on the night of the full moon, it wouldn't be a thorough exploration. He might even miss out on some important information. Suddenly, Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao meaningfully. Cough cough, didn't you say that you would protect me for 2 months? The Jade Emperor's heart suddenly tightened. Why did she feel like she had fallen into a trap? Chapter 827. Hey, beautiful lady. A male elemental elf ran towards Luo Yao from a short distance away. Luo Yao turned around and frowned slightly. She said coldly, "Get lost." Lu Chen suddenly realized that Luo Yao's attitude towards him was already quite good. As for others, she did not even give them a chance to speak. They greeted her politely, but she directly said, "Get lost." How bad was her temper? Looking at the elf's badge carefully, he was also an earth cultivation expert. That male elemental elf did not get angry. Instead, he apologized, "I'm really sorry, senior. Please forgive my rudeness." Lu Chen's eyes almost popped out. Was this the difference between people? Why was he so polite when Luo Yao scolded him and directly changed to calling her senior? And the people he met were all blind people. Senior, may I ask if you are a 5-star emperor? Oh, I'm talking about the Yellow Emperor's emperor. After all, only 5-star emperor and above can use spirit energy to cover their badge. Luo Yao was the Jade Empress. Naturally, not just anyone could strike up a conversation with her. However, this person was still polite. Now that she was beside the solipsistic, Luo Yao finally restrained herself a little. My cultivation level has nothing to do with you. Senior, may I know where you are heading? Seeing that Luo Yao did not speak, this person continued, we are heading towards the Peacock City. The journey is a little far. It will take us at least 3 days. Therefore, we have not found enough companions. However, we have to reach the Peacock City on the night of the full moon. Time is too tight. If Senior is heading in the same direction, why don't you travel with us? We have more than 10 Emperor experts in our group and another 5-star Emperor expert. Although there are not many of us, we are not weak. Luo Yao was not in the mood to listen to him. She impatiently pointed at Lu Chen. Ask him. That person turned and saw Lu Chen. He then looked at Lu Chen's badge. 7-star wild cultivator. There were also mortals, cultivators, and cultivators in the Baishir nation. However, those who dared to enter the Demon Eye Valley were at least in the earth cultivation realm. Seeing a cultivator here, the man almost thought that he was seeing things. Lu Chen had a helpless look on his face as he took the initiative to report his rank. Big brother, you're almost sticking to me. You didn't see wrong, I'm a 7-star wild practitioner. Lu Chen also wanted to raise his immortal cultivation level, but unfortunately, the spirit extraction scroll was hard to come by recently. As an unaffiliated cultivator, it was even harder for him to get his hands on one, so he could only stop at this level. That person raised his head, his face full of shock. Not only was he a cultivator, he was also a wild one. What a double surprise! It was really strange that a super strong 5-star monarch cultivator would listen to a 7-star cultivator. However, since the woman asked him, the male elf followed her instructions and asked, this. Little brother, it's okay. Actually, it's better to marry a good girl than to have a high rank. I can only say that you're really lucky to have found such a beautiful woman. It's really perfect. Little brother, if you're going the same way, why don't you come with us? The place we're going to is quite far away. You won't lose out if you come with us. Hey, how about this? If you're willing to come with us, we can give you 10,000 spirit extraction scrolls. That person whispered into Lu Chen's ear. We can't afford to give you more than that. The spirit extraction scrolls are really tight now. The 1,000 spirit extraction scrolls were naturally given on account of Luo Yao. Lu Chen didn't care if they followed or not. However, their group was going deeper into the Demon Eye Valley, so it was fine for them to go together. Moreover, they were actually offering spirit extraction scrolls. Luo Yao's group was worth 10,000 spirit extraction scrolls. Isn't this money coming too easily? Luo Yao shouldn't be lacking in spirit extraction scrolls. She wouldn't even know that he had secretly taken them. When are you guys leaving? We only have around 200 people, but we can't wait any longer. Regardless of whether everyone is here or not, we'll be leaving soon. Alright, then give us the spirit extraction scrolls first. We'll go with you. The two of them secretly completed the transaction. Lu Chen held on to the 10,000 spirit extraction scrolls and almost cried. It had been a long time since he had received a spirit extraction scrolls. If he still couldn't find a way to earn money, he would really have to resort to robbery. At this moment, Luo Yao walked over and looked coldly at the spirit extraction scrolls in Lu Chen's hands. You sold me for 10,000 spirit extraction scrolls. It turned out that this fellow had seen everything. Just take it as a reward for your hard work of cooking every day. Lu Chen kept the spirit extraction scrolls and boasted shamelessly. Luo Yao didn't pursue the matter. 10,000 spirit extraction scrolls were nothing to her. Hey, did you observe that group? No. You didn't even observe them and you agreed to their request. I really don't know if I should say that you're naive or stupid. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Is there a problem with them? They're Nightwalker clan. Ah. Lu Chen looked strangely at the back of the elemental young man. At this time, he was busy notifying the members of the group. How did you know? Luo Yao's expression was a little unnatural, but she still said, you men may not be able to feel it, but I can feel it. The way he looked at me just now was not right. He has been secretly staring at my legs and... Anyway, his eyes are not honest. What's wrong with that? Who asked you to be so beautiful? Even if you're not a Nightwalker, you can't help but take a few more glances. According to what you said, I'm also a Nightwalker. Lu Chen was telling the truth, but Luo Yao was stunned. Huh? You're also secretly staring at me. Lu Chen suddenly realized that he had spilled the beans and hurriedly said, I told you not to be so sensitive. Let's go, they've already gathered over there. Luo Yao shook her head slightly. Previously, she had a new level of respect for Solipsistic, but from this small matter, it seemed that Solipsistic was always careless. Can such a person be that 1 in 10,000? 1 in 10,000 could not reverse the situation. 1 in 10,000. Did it mean that 1 in 10,000 could reverse the situation, or that no one could reverse the situation? Luo Yao could not help but frown deeply. The elves group had already set off. The group was mostly made up of elves, dwarves, humans, goblins, and half-beasts. There were both men and women, about 200 people. The Magic Eye Grand Canyon was surrounded by strange and huge plants. A single leaf was even bigger than several people. There was no ready-made road in the canyon, only many narrow paths left behind by people who had passed through for a long time. At first, there were many groups around, and Lu Chen's group was relatively relaxed. However, as they walked, the road began to widen, and gradually, there was a fork in the road, and the groups were divided. The cliffs on both sides became higher and higher, and the road began to become rugged. A stream flowed down from the cliff on the left, forming a thin waterfall. The surrounding plants became denser, and someone in the front row had already taken out a weapon to cut down the plants blocking the way. Lu Chen had already summoned Rhubarb and Furball, and they followed at the back of the group. Rhubarb, be careful. Rhubarb nodded and followed closely beside Lu Chen. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. The second spirit vein must be found. Chapter 828. Everything was normal in the canyon until night. They didn't even encounter a single magical beast. After all, this place was close to the entrance. There were many people entering the canyon, so magical beasts rarely appeared. At night, the group camped in an open field. Those who knew each other would form a circle. Lu Chen also set up a campfire and prepared dinner with Luo Yao. Little brother, you haven't eaten yet? The elf man from before walked over enthusiastically. You two don't have to cook. Come and eat with us. We have many specialties here. Let's try them together. Luo Yao narrowed her eyes slightly. Her eyes were already filled with killing intent, but Lu Chen didn't notice it and happily agreed. Sure, I haven't eaten elf food before. You want to try everything you haven't eaten before? Luo Yao said coldly. Lu Chen smiled. I don't cook anyway. You can cook for yourself. With that, he left with the elf man. Luo Yao snorted. She already said that there was something wrong with this group of people, but this guy still went to eat other people's food? How did this guy survive until now? She said that she would protect him for 2 months. Was she really going to throw him to the Nightwalkers? Luo Yao let out a sigh and followed him. There were about 10 people with the elf man. 4 of them were Emperor Realm experts. They were about 3 or 4 stars. When Luo Yao came over, a strange look flashed in the eyes of the few men. One of them even stared at her chest for a few seconds. The elf race was a polite race. They were also arrogant by nature. Even if they met someone they liked, they rarely showed such eagerness. Luo Yao had been through hundreds of battles. She was more familiar with the Nightwalkers than the shop owner. The closer it was to night, the easier it was for the Nightwalkers' nature to be exposed. Looking at their behavior now, Luo Yao was even more certain that these people were Nightwalkers. Lu Chen had 2 elf women by his side. They held hands and taught Lu Chen how to cook. They were chatting and laughing intimately. "Senior, you're here too. Come and sit." The elf man went up to greet her enthusiastically. Even though he was very controlled, his gaze couldn't help but linger on Luo Yao's chest for a few seconds. As expected, this guy was even more outrageous than during the day. His true nature was being revealed more and more. During the banquet, Solipsistic Brat only cared about chatting and laughing with the 2 elf beauties. Luo Yao felt a wave of disgust wash over her. Just a moment ago, he and Snow had treated each other with respect from the back, but now, he had turned around and hugged her in his arms. Men really aren't good things. Luo Yao coldly snorted and took out her own wine to drink. "Senior, it's boring to drink alone. Since we haven't entered the canyon yet, it's fine to drink a little more today." Someone immediately came over to propose a toast. "That's right. Senior, I've never seen an immortal like you before. You're simply like a fairy that has descended to the mortal world. Not only that, you're also so powerful. May I ask exactly how many stars of the Martial Emperor realm Senior is?" A 4-star Martial Emperor also came over. "Senior, are you and that little brother really an immortal couple? Little brother is really lucky to have married such a celestial being like you. Isn't that so? Senior, how do you take care of yourself? Your skin is still so tender." "Ah, Senior, please don't misunderstand. My wife often complains that her skin is poor. I'm sincerely asking for your guidance." Luo Yao drank a few mouthfuls of wine and felt annoyed when she looked at Lu Chen. She said unhappily, "He wants to marry me." In his dreams. The people around Luo Yao looked at each other with a slightly smug look in their eyes. Wine cups clinked, and Luo Yao didn't know how much she had drunk. "Senior, you're really good at drinking. However, are you really not planning to taste our mistakes? Drinking wine is a little bad for your stomach. Forget it, forget it. What's so good about food? Senior and I hit it off at first sight. Come, let's drink." In the surrounding campsites, the people had already fallen asleep, and the voices here gradually weakened. The night returned to peace. In the middle of the night, the sleeping elf suddenly opened her eyes. He observed the 2 humans in the campsite. The 2 of them were sleeping so deeply that they were almost unconscious. Only then did he sit up and lightly pat his companion beside him. That person also instantly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, he impatiently reached out to touch Luo Yao's chest. "Wait. Although these 2 people are dead drunk, they didn't eat our food. This woman is not weak. If she wakes up later, there might be trouble. Pull these 2 people a little farther away and give them some medicine. I guarantee that they will be obedient tomorrow." Several elves woke up one after another. A group of people lifted Lu Chen and Luo Yao out of the camp with their spirit chi. "Hee, such a beautiful girl, I can't help it." A 4-star Emperor elf rubbed his hands, his eyes full of greed. "Quick, hallucination mushroom. No matter how strong you are, you still have needs." In front of the hallucination mushroom, even if your strength is monstrous, I will make you submit to me. Immediately, a subordinate brought over 2 purple mushrooms. Luo Yao was surrounded by more than a dozen elves, while Lu Chen was surrounded by 3 female elves. They also had hallucination mushrooms in their hands. It seemed that they couldn't do anything without this magical plant. Hee, little handsome, you two are really lucky today. There are so many of us here to play with you. You really have good luck with women. In a while, absorb half of his spirit chi. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if others find out. Okay, Sister Su, you try it first. Sister Su placed the hallucination mushroom in front of Lu Chen and activated her spirit chi, preparing to trigger the hallucination mushroom to release its medicinal effect. Suddenly, a cold sword directly pierced through her throat. Everything happened too quickly, so much so that Sister Su didn't even have time to react. She could only widen her eyes and look in the direction of the sword. She saw that the sleeping human had already opened his eyes. Lu Chen shook his head regretfully. If you have any needs, you can just ask me face to face. Why do you have to use such methods? Previously, everyone got along very well. Sigh, I also don't want to kill you. Sister Su's eyes were filled with pain. Her mouth opened and closed, and large mouthfuls of blood gushed out. You, what about me? You really think I can't see through your tricks? Sister Su's life was quickly draining away. When her body collapsed, black smoke came out from her mouth. Lu Chen coldly snorted. That was probably the main body of the Nightwalker race. Want to run? Divine Demon Symbiosis. I'm all ears. A powerful suction force came, and that black smoke was forcefully pulled back by Lu Chen. A pitch-black cannon muzzle was placed in front of the black smoke. Lu Chen's eyes flashed a trace of coldness. Spiritual Space Cannon. With a loud bang, Lu Chen didn't hesitate. Without waiting for her to enter soul-body unification, he killed her with a single shot. At the same time, there was a loud shout from Luo Yao's side. Instantly, sword light flashed everywhere. Lu Chen only glanced in that direction and smiled. Although Luo Yao's alcohol tolerance wasn't good, she still had some intelligence. It was impossible for her to get drunk at this time, so there was no need for him to worry. The other 2 female elves looked at Lu Chen in horror. Since you already knew that we are from the Nightwalker race, why did you still come to meet us? Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. He drew a sword in his hand and closed in on the 2 girls. Sigh, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for showing off your wealth in front of me. In order to fish, you casually took out 10,000 yuan cash coupons. TSK, you're quite rich. It just so happens that I'm short of money recently. And you too are people who deserve to die. Tell me, with such a warm invitation, do you think I have a reason to reject it? Chapter 829. On the other side, Luo Yao had also suddenly attacked. The other party was caught off guard and was ambushed by the Jade Emperor. The result was obvious. Soon, Luo Yao had also finished her battle. She had just stopped when she saw the solipsistic sitting at the side and watching the show. You're awake. Lu Chen hurried over and searched the corpses one by one. Of course I'm awake. Otherwise, do you expect to finish the battle so that you can watch my erotic scenes? Lu Chen was very careful. He soon found a bunch of cash withdrawal scrolls on the corpses. Good lord, there's at least 70 to 80,000. Lu Chen was pleasantly surprised. These guys must have killed and robbed many times. How despicable. Luo Yao was completely stunned. How did she not realize that this guy was actually so sinister? Thinking back, when the elf man came over to strike up a conversation, this guy seemed to have changed into a different person. He seemed especially gullible. When they invited him over for dinner, he agreed faster than anyone else. It was as if he had been waiting for it. In the end, it was all a facade. This guy was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. He was full of evil tricks. What was worse was that he had already finished off a few nightwalkers, but he did not come over to help. He even searched the corpses first. No, aren't you also killing and robbing now? Why are you still so righteous? Luo Yao looked at the solipsistic in shock. I've seen thick-skinned people, but this is the first time I've seen someone as thick-skinned as you. Lu Chen stood up and shook his head. It's not easy for a level 5 to drop equipment. Maybe it's because they haven't activated soul body as one. It's a pity. Lu Chen held a stack of cash withdrawal scrolls. Looking at them, his mood improved. Not bad. There's at least 70 to 80,000 cash withdrawal scrolls. I've made a small fortune. Lu Chen kept the cash withdrawal scrolls and walked to Luo Yao. Of course I'm different from them. I still have a bottom line. At least I'll kill people. After saying that, Lu Chen painfully took out a stack of cash withdrawal scrolls. There were about 20,000 cash withdrawal scrolls and handed them to Luo Yao. Here, this is your share. Luo Yao was rather surprised that this fellow would actually give her a share. At this moment, Luo Yao realized that she was becoming more and more unable to see through this person. He had hidden himself so deeply that he had even fooled her. Luo Yao raised her head and looked at Lu Chen with a faint smile. That's all I have. I've killed more people than you, and all the experts are on my side. I should be the one taking the lead. Lu Chen pursed his lips. You're taking the biggest share. You're so silly and always keep a straight face. People can tell at a glance that you're wary of them. My plan was almost ruined by you. If you didn't attract these people, I wouldn't even want to give you 10,000 yuan. You. As the ruler of the Eastern Peak Nation, Luo Yao had experienced countless battles, big and small. Yet, she was actually despised by this fellow. In fact, it wasn't that Luo Yao didn't know how to disguise herself. Her experience wasn't any less than Lu Chen's. It was just that in recent years, she had been leading armies and fighting wars more and more. She had been traveling less and less in the Jianghu. Moreover, as the Jade Emperor, she couldn't let go of her status. Those Nightwalker clan members who peeked at her wretchedly would have been killed by her. Why would there be so much trouble later on? However, no matter what, she wasn't as natural as the solipsistic. Forget it. I don't want your cash withdrawal scroll. You can keep it for yourself. Luo Yao didn't really want the cash withdrawal scroll. She just wanted to see why the solipsistic distributed the rewards. Now that she understood, since it made sense, she didn't care about the cash withdrawal scroll. You don't want it? I don't want it. It's best if you don't want it. Lu Chen didn't hold back at all. What he lacked the most now was cash withdrawal scrolls. Go back and sleep. Just as Lu Chen and Luo Yao left, a pair of eyes peeked out from the depths of the grass. Judging from his figure, he seemed to be a human. Who are these two people? They killed all the Nightwalker clan members in an instant. This. What kind of strength is this? The next morning, the large group quickly discovered that the group of elves had died outside the campsite. However, their deaths were very gruesome. Their faces were pitch black, their eyes were almost popping out of their sockets, and their bodies were stiff. Just looking at the corpses, they seemed to have died a long time ago. It's the Nightwalker clan. Someone quickly reacted. After the Nightwalker clan members were killed, they would look like this. Heavens, it's really the Nightwalker clan. Isn't that the guy who pulled us in? He's actually from the Nightwalker clan. I didn't even notice. Someone felt a chill. Who killed them? These Nightwalker clan members were very high level. There were 4 great emperors, and one of them was even a 4-star great emperor. To have the strength to kill them all silently. Who was it? Someone had killed someone in the campsite. Whether it was the Nightwalker clan or the culprit, it wasn't a good thing for the partners. Immediately, someone began to investigate. It's not a big deal to find out who killed the Nightwalker tribe. We just need to say hello to everyone. Someone secretly looked at Lu Chen and Luo Yao. Many people had seen the two of them enter the elf campsite. Lu Chen didn't want to admit that he had killed and robbed, so as to avoid trouble. He shook his head and said, "Don't look at me. My level is low, so I can't kill them." Someone saw Lu Chen's badge. A 7-star wild cultivator. He was immediately eliminated as a suspect. With that said, the only suspect left was Luo Yao. Luo Yao glared at Lu Chen and said, "My senior brother told me, especially a girl, that I can't stay in an outsider's campsite. Yesterday, I went there to eat something, but I came back very quickly." Suddenly, 2 dwarves jumped out to testify for Luo Yao. That's true. After all, this is the White Lion Nation. Everyone knows that there are Nightwalker clan members here. It's very rare for a girl to stay outside alone. Yes, I did see this girl come out from their campsite. I can prove it. Luo Yao nodded slightly at the 2 dwarves to express her gratitude. This person didn't say anything. The 2 dwarves immediately raised their heads and bowed back like gentlemen. This scene didn't escape Lu Chen's eyes. Good heavens, so you can do whatever you want just because you're good looking. In the crowd, a pair of eyes kept staring at the 2 dwarves. This guy was also speechless. In terms of acting skills, the 2 of them seemed to be on par with each other. Indeed, birds of the same feather flock together. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have suspected the 2 of them. This person also didn't say anything. In the end, this matter was left unsettled. A few people wanted to go up and search the corpses, but naturally, they didn't find anything. The group still had to hurry on with their journey. Everyone set off again, but every small group seemed to have become more cautious. On the 2nd day, everything was peaceful. On the 3rd day, they were already close to Peacock City. At this time, they had already gone deep into the canyon. The cliffs on both sides were hundreds of meters high, and the vegetation was denser and larger than before. There was a strong airflow above the canyon, so they couldn't fly. Everyone could only move forward with difficulty. Everyone, hurry up. At this speed, we can't catch up. Please don't encounter any demonic beasts. We've been delayed for too long. We can't make it now. Don't jinx it. If we hurry, we can definitely reach Peacock City before the night of the full moon. At this time, dark clouds appeared in the sky above the canyon. The dark clouds were thick and heavy, and the surroundings started to darken. In an instant, heavy rain began to fall from the sky. The rain poured down heavily, and the visibility was less than 5 meters. The huge branches and leaves of the plants were pressed down, making it almost impossible to walk on the ground. Why is it raining so heavily? We can't walk. We have to walk even if we can't. Otherwise, we'll be eaten by the demons. Hurry. Lu Chen frowned slightly. This rain was a little strange. Hey! A faint voice called out from behind. Be careful, something is coming. What's making such a big commotion? Lu Chen asked curiously. Luo Yao's gaze seemed to be able to see through the rain. Our luck is really good. When we get back, I'll definitely try my luck at the casino. It's very likely the owner of the Magic Eye Canyon, the 8-eyed lion. Oh, I wonder if it's 8 or 9 eyes. Luo Yao didn't forget to add. Chapter 830. The water on the ground converged into a river in less than 5 minutes, washing over the team. Lu Chen was about to take out the clear water orb when he suddenly found the rainwater above his head bouncing off a spirit energy shield. Lu Qin turned around in surprise and found that Luo Yao had opened up a spirit energy shield. This transparent shield isolated the two of them from the outside world, like two people holding an umbrella on a rainy day. What are you looking at? If the eight-eyed ghoul appears later, don't run around, your little tricks won't work in front of absolute strength. Luo Yao's gaze was still focused on the surroundings. Lu Qin suddenly asked, how is the eight-eyed ghoul compared to the eight-tailed snow fox? Luo Yao looked at Lu Qin, then her gaze swept to the 7-star Wild Cultivator badge. As expected, Wild Cultivator's common sense was so poor that it made her speechless. Have you heard of the 7 demonic beast generals? Lu Qin nodded. Almost all of the 7 demonic beast generals are rank 8. Although the difference doesn't sound big, the difference in strength is huge. Rank 8 is the realm of demonic beasts, and demonic beasts' realms aren't divided as clearly as cultivators. Their rank 8 strength span is very large. If compared to cultivators, they can cover our double D cultivation. Double D cultivation should be referring to the two great realms of earth cultivation and emperor cultivation. Think about it, how big is the eight-tailed snow fox's sphere of influence? How big is the eight-eyed ghoul's sphere of influence? In the area where the eight-tailed snow fox lives, what are the cultivation levels of the surrounding cultivators, and what about the eight-eyed ghoul? Lu Qin frowned. The eight-tailed snow fox only controls a snow mountain, and the surrounding cultivators are mainly great cultivators and earth cultivators, while the eight-eyed ghoul lives in the Magic Eye Canyon, which spans almost an entire country, and there is no lack of emperor cultivators around. With this comparison, Lu Qin immediately understood. The eight-eyed ghoul's strength was not just a little bit stronger than the eight-tailed snow fox. I only hope that guy hasn't evolved to 9 eyes, otherwise it will be very troublesome. Luo Yao's tone was heavy. Lu Qin rarely saw her so serious. Nameless, I said I would guarantee your safety. Follow me closely and avoid the eight-eyed ghoul if you can. If you dare to run around, I will kill you. Luo Yao grabbed Lu Qin's arm and stared at Lu Qin fiercely. If the Jade Emperor couldn't fulfill her promise, she would definitely lose face. It seemed like Luo Yao was serious. Lu Qin's objective was completely different from Luo Yao's. However, now that Luo Yao had threatened him so fiercely, Lu Qin could only agree to her request for the time being. I know. I don't want to die. I'll follow you, okay? You're a girl, why are you so fierce? Seeing that Lu Qin had given in, Luo Yao let go of him. Follow the team. The torrential rain showed no signs of stopping. Instead, it was getting heavier. Although the rain wasn't enough to stop the team from moving forward, it greatly slowed down the team's progress. Lu Qin and Luo Yao followed the team closely and moved forward with difficulty. Suddenly, 2 humans in front of them stopped and looked at them anxiously, standing there and waiting for them. One of them was a middle-aged man, and the other was a little girl who was about 12 or 13 years old. The man was a 6-star earth cultivator, and the girl was an 8-star great cultivator. Both of you, can we travel with you? The man asked earnestly. Lu Qin looked at the girl strangely. She was in the 5th layer of heaven at such a young age. Unless she was a native, it was almost impossible to come to the 5th layer of heaven at such a young age. You are a native? Yes. The man nodded. This is my daughter. During a hunt, we obtained some opportunities and embarked on the path of cultivation. Very few natives could cultivate, but there were countless opportunities in the 5th heaven, so it wasn't completely impossible for natives to cultivate. Moreover, these 2 people's cultivation levels were not low. Among the natives, they were considered top-notch experts. Seeing that Lu Qin and Luo Yao were silent, the man said, Please take my daughter with you. This rain is strange. I think it's caused by a powerful demonic beast. With my strength, I can't protect Xiao Hui. I only ask that you take my daughter with you. What does your daughter have to do with us? Luo Yao said coldly. Both of you, I know that you are very strong. On the first night, I happened to be outside the camp. The man mustered up his courage and looked at them. His implication was obvious. He had seen Lu Chen and Luo Yao killing the Nightwalker tribe. So what if you saw it? Luo Yao didn't buy it at all. Both of you, please don't misunderstand. I have no intention of exposing you. These few days, I have been very tight-lipped and didn't mention a word to anyone. What I mean is that since the two of you could kill those Nightwalkers, you definitely have the strength to protect yourself. Taking Xiao Hui with you might be a piece of cake. But to me, if that person came, even if I risked my life, I wouldn't be able to protect Xiao Hui. The man choked. I promised the child's mother that I would protect Xiao Hui. But Since you want to protect your daughter, why did you bring her to Demon Eye Valley? Lu Chen asked. The man seemed to have something he couldn't say, but now was not the time to hide it. He sighed. White Lion Kingdom's war god, the Lion King, is about to gain attributes. The child's mother, she is the medium for the Lion King's awakening. In order to gain the Lion King's attributes, the child's mother must be sacrificed. 3 months ago, someone snatched the child's mother away. Most people wouldn't believe such a baseless story, but Lu Chen was already 80 to 90% convinced. Only a few people knew about this. The man wouldn't use such a thing as an excuse. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. The Lion King was about to awaken. His method of rebirth was similar to the ice gods. He also relied on the natives to store the necessary ingredients for his rebirth. 3 months ago. It's been so long. I'm afraid your wife, not everyone was like Xue, who could meet Lu Chen. The man's eyes reddened. His voice trembled. I know. But I won't give up until I see it with my own eyes. Even if it's a corpse, even if it's a strand of hair, I will find it. Lu Chen sighed. The fate of the weak was so lowly. His true love was so easily taken away. The two of you follow us. This was all Lu Chen could do now. Luo Yao said unhappily, Hey, I'm only protecting you. I'm not responsible for protecting them. Lu Chen smiled. It's okay. I will protect them. Although Luo Yao was cold, she still covered the father and daughter with her spiritual shield. Thank you for your kindness. My name is Tai. Xiao Hui quickly thanked the two benefactors. Luo Yao waved her hand, heartlessly rejecting the two's thanks. Lu Chen had been thinking about a question. The 7 ancient gods seemed to be reborn one after another. Could this be a coincidence? Why did it happen after he opened the spiritual veins in the heavenly lake? The situation in the 5th heaven seemed to be getting more and more complicated. What a deadly immortal level hidden mission. This was going to overturn the entire heavenly layer. Father, can we reach the Peacock City before the full moon? Xiao Hui asked. If we really delay until the full moon, will we all die? Tai looked at the sky and frowned. Don't be afraid. Xiao Hui, as long as we don't meet any demonic beasts, we should be able to make it. However, just as Tai finished speaking, someone in front of the group suddenly shouted. There's a demonic beast. Chapter 831. Lu Chen looked at Tai in shock. Brother, can you stop talking? Luo Xue frowned. Even if he doesn't say it, the beasts will come. Lu Chen and the rest were at the back of the team. In the heavy rain, blurry figures were approaching. It's the Rain Jiao. Judging from their size, their strength should be between the 6th and 7th transformation. There are about 300 to 400 of them. Luo Xue saw the enemy clearly. The Rain Jiao looked like a dog with leopard prints all over its body. Its horns were like that of a cow and its body was about 10 meters tall. Sixth or seventh transformation meant that they had to be killed 6 to 7 times. Every time they were resurrected, their strength would increase greatly. It's not the eight-eyed gnomes, Atai said nervously. It's its subordinates. These Rain Jiao's strength is already terrifying and they live in groups. However, in the past, there would not be more than 20 to 30 of them. A normal team would be able to deal with them, but now there are so many of them. Our team is already small. It's impossible for us to reach Peacock City before the full moon. 3 to 406th or 7th transformation Rain Jiao were enough to surround them. The battle was about to start. The surrounding teams had already come into contact with a large number of Rain Jiao. The sound of their souls merging into one could be heard continuously. All kinds of skills and shouts could be heard in the heavy rain. The first transformation Rain Jiao was not difficult for these experts. The key was time. Being entangled by these Rain Jiao, it was impossible for them to reach Peacock City. Looks like we can't escape. Oh well, my two benefactors, I will try my best to hold them back. You guys take Xiao Hui and leave first. Atai took out a long staff. From the weapon, he should be a close combat martial artist. Father. Xiao Hui pulled her father reluctantly. Xiao Hui. Follow my two benefactors. If you see your mother in the future and she's still alive, tell her. I miss her very much. Also, Xiao Hui, you have to live well. Whether your mother and I are still alive or not, you have to live. After saying that, Atai held the long staff and rushed into the heavy rain through Luo Yao's spiritual shield. He shouted as he ran, "Go!" Seeing Atai rush into the group of Rain Jiao without hesitation, Xiao Hui broke down and cried. Father! An earth elementalist had charged into the Cunning Yu group alone. The final outcome was self-evident. If nothing unexpected happened, Atai would definitely not have survived. Luo Yao glanced at Xiao Hui, who was sobbing uncontrollably and had almost broken free from Lu Chen's arms. She suddenly felt a little dazed. She was in a high position and had seen many deaths. She should have been indifferent to this, but for some reason, when she was beside these ordinary people, she felt completely different from when she was high up in the air and counting the list of the dead. She could truly feel the pain of being separated by life and death. In order to protect his daughter, her father did not hesitate to block Yu Jiao alone. The higher one's cultivation level was, the more difficult it was to encounter such a stupid thing. In the royal family, it was not uncommon for brothers to kill each other in order to compete for resources. On the contrary, it was these ordinary people who placed their family members in a more important position than their own lives. He glanced at Xiao Hui again. The little girl refused to leave no matter what. She was already sobbing her eyes out. Luo Yao sighed and shook her head. What's the point of you staying? He's just going to die. And that stupid father of yours. Does he think that a mere earth elementalist like him can block these Yu Jiao? Xiao Hui's heart ached. When she heard Luo Yao berate them the moment she opened her mouth, she glared at Luo Yao. What right do you have to talk about my father? I don't need your protection. Let me go. If you dared to talk to me like this under normal circumstances, you would have died long ago. Luo Yao snorted coldly. She took out a rubber band from somewhere and used both hands to tie it up skillfully. Her waterfall-like long hair was tied up high. Kid, don't run around. Luo Yao warned Lu Chen. At the same time, she slowly pulled out a purple longsword from the void. In a flash, Luo Yao transformed into a pale green flowing light and stabbed towards the Cunning Yu group. She had not activated Soul Body as one either. A ray of sword light flashed and shot towards the Cunning Yu group like a laser. Just as it was about to hit the Cunning Yu group, the ray of light suddenly split into dozens of branches and shot towards the surrounding Cunning Yu group with unerring accuracy. Sword Dao Limitless. In just an instant, 40 to 50 cunning Yu who had undergone their first job transition were all killed. As Tai fought, he suddenly realized that the enemies were all gone. He turned his head blankly and saw a pale green figure slowly walking towards him in the rain. She was holding a purple longsword and wearing a green dress. Even though the rain was falling, it was unable to wet her clothes at all. "Your daughter is crying and making a fuss. She's too annoying. If you want to take care of her, go take care of her yourself," Luo Yao said coldly as she passed by Tai. "Benefactor, don't be a hindrance here. Hurry up and leave. They're about to undergo their second job transition." Luo Yao still did not give Tai any face. Tai knew that he was too weak and hurriedly retreated to Lu Chen's side. "Father." Hui hugged her father tightly. "I thought I would never see you again. Next time, don't leave me alone. If we're going to die, let's die together as a family." Tai held back his tears and nodded heavily. Lu Chen took out the clear water pearl at some point and helped the father and daughter avoid the rain. Tai suddenly thought of something and looked anxiously at Lu Chen. "Benefactor, your wife, her. She's not my wife." Lu Chen shook his head. "I didn't expect this guy to help you. Don't worry, we'll send you to Peacock City. Wait for her first." At this time, some of the rain jiaos resurrected very quickly. Just a moment after they fell down, they straightened their bodies and underwent their second job transition. Luo Yao's figure was like a ghost. Her sword chi crisscrossed. In the heavy rain, she was like a green shadow, jumping among the rain jiaos. Wherever the green shadow went, blood splattered. But before the blood completely exploded, she had already flashed in front of another rain jiaos. Her sword danced, and several rain jiaos fell to the ground again. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. He knew that Luo Yao should be very strong, but he did not expect this guy to be so strong. In just a few minutes, she had already forced the rain jiaos to undergo their fourth job transition. Moreover, the most important thing was her fighting style. Except for the everlasting sword Dao, she did not seem to use any skills. She only used her body movement and sword skills to stab the rain jiao's vital points. Good fellow, not only did she not use soul body as one, she didn't even use any skills. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao with interest. When she fights, her figure is graceful. The position of every step is not only to dodge, but also to accumulate strength for the next attack. Her fighting experience and skills are top-notch. Every move seems like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, but it's extremely fatal. Her moves are as smooth as flowing water, and there are countless possibilities of changing moves everywhere. Using the least amount of strength to put herself in the most powerful position. This guy is a bit strong. To be able to receive such praise from Lu Chen, Luo Yao was probably the only one in the current position. "Dad, that sister, is so strong." Even Xiao Hui was stunned. "And she's so beautiful when she fights. She doesn't look like she's killing people, but more like she's dancing." Tai's gaze could not leave Luo Yao. He could not help but shake his head and sigh. "I've never seen anyone who can perform a battle so beautifully. She's so skillful and so casual. This benefactor's strength is definitely not just a 5-star emperor." Chapter 832. By the time Yu Jiao reached the 5th class advancement, the surrounding teams had already fallen into a bitter battle. Some in the crowd had already given up on themselves. What's the point of fighting like this? Yu Jiao becomes stronger every time he revives. Even if we can kill him, we won't be able to escape Demon Eye Valley in time. We can't win. They're getting stronger. My soul-body fusion time is almost up. It's over. There were also some who had yet to give up. Stop talking nonsense. Demon Eye Valley is so big. I don't believe that there's no way out once the full moon arrives. There's an expert at the back. This is everyone's only chance. If we don't fight now, we'll definitely die. Luo Yao had already killed the surrounding Yu Jiao to the 6th class advancement. Some of them had even reached the 7th class advancement. When Lu Chen had faced 7 5th class advancement Swanyi at the same time, he had also felt the pressure multiply. Now, there were dozens of 6th class Yu Jiao and even the former Yu Jiao. However, Luo Yao's movements were not messed up at all. Her figure was graceful, and her movements were clean and neat. Her sword left scars as it passed. The only difference was that she had begun to use skills. 9 Palace Flowers Shifting. Luo Yao's figure was even faster than before. Traceless Way of the Sword, Mortal Sword. Luo Yao's every sword carried a sharp sword aura. Her sword moves were endless, and her sword aura was endless. Lu Chen frowned. Luo Yao's skills seemed to be very different from his. Regardless of the damage, Luo Yao's skills seemed to have been integrated into her every move. An upward slash would cause sword aura to rise from the ground. A straight stab would cause sword aura to erupt from the tip of the sword. There were no deliberate moves. Invisibly, her skills were everywhere. Could it be that experts will integrate their skills and moves like this when they reach a high level? Lu Chen could not help but ponder. For example, after the 7 transformations of demons and gods, Lu Chen could unleash 2,160 slashes with Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain. However, every time, he would use the skill in one go. Although the power was terrifying, on the other hand, high damage was actually useless. In most cases, the damage would overflow. Moreover, if the opponent dodged, he would have wasted a sacred lotus sword. If he could fuse his skills with his moves, he would be able to maintain Holy Sword Lotus for even longer. Another example would be the world-annihilating 9 dragons. 9 dragons would appear at the same time, but if they could be separated so that each move only had 1 dragon, it might be quite effective. It had to be said that watching Luo Yao's battle inspired Lu Chen greatly. Big brother, aren't you going to help big sister? Xiao Hui looked at Lu Chen strangely. Only then did Lu Chen wake up from his contemplation. Although Luo Yao was strong, their goal was to leave the battle as soon as possible. Okay, I'll go help her. You two stay here and don't run around. Lu Chen had just taken a step when he suddenly heard an explosion in the battlefield. With a boom, the rainwater gathered on the ground within a radius of several hundred meters, along with the soil and plants, suddenly exploded. Lu Chen hurriedly looked at the battlefield. Luo Yao was slowly walking over, but behind her, the explosions were becoming more and more intense. Let's go, my explosion array won't be able to hold them for long. I tried my best to control the number of times they were reborn. Most of them were at the 6th transformation. If they were reborn again, they would be at the 7th transformation. At that time, it would be more troublesome. Luo Yao quickly rushed in front of the 3 of them. Lu Chen was even more surprised. Luo Yao actually set up an array in such a dangerous situation just now. She didn't even notice it. Not only that, she had already decided not to fight head-on at the beginning of the battle. Instead, she used movement to set up an array. It was clear that she wasn't the kind of person who fought brainlessly. This woman was quite strong. You haven't used soul-body fusion yet? Lu Chen sized up Luo Yao with interest. This fellow was probably the person whose strength was closest to his among all the people he had met. It's just Yu Jiao. Luo Yao replied lightly. After saying that, she took the lead and rushed forward. Follow me closely. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao's back and couldn't help but sigh. Was this her nature? She didn't panic in the face of chaos and was quite strong. She even lied to me and didn't eat for several days. Lu Chen complained and jogged to catch up. The surrounding teams saw Luo Yao and the others. Some of them asked for help, but Luo Yao didn't even look at them. Xiao Hui couldn't bear it. Aren't we going to save them? Luo Yao said decisively, no. The four of them ran forward. When Yu Jiao pounced on them, Luo Yao raised her hand and slashed with her sword, showing no mercy. Not long after, the four of them broke out of Yu Jiao's encirclement and moved quickly toward Peacock City. It wasn't easy to catch up with Luo Yao. Luo Yao didn't have the habit of stopping to wait for others. Tai could still keep up, but Xiao Hui was a little powerless. Xiao Hui, hurry. Tai was a little anxious. Lu Chen carried Xiao Hui on his back. Brother Tai, I'll carry her. Let's get out of here first. Gradually, Yu Jiao stopped chasing them. The heavy rain in front of them also became a lot lighter. However, when they looked back, the road they came from was still a murky world of drizzling rain. The team's speed finally slowed down. Tai shook his head. He didn't know how many people were going to fall into the mud. Only the four of them were left in the team of more than 200 people. The dark clouds were still above their heads. The four of them didn't dare to stop and rest. They continued to walk toward Peacock City. Speaking of which, such a large area was covered by dark clouds, causing them to be unable to see the sky clearly. However, as they gradually left the center of the storm, the dark clouds gradually thinned. Tai's heart was once again in his mouth. Not good, it's going to be dark soon. After Luo Yao heard that, she secretly increased her speed. Half an hour later, the canyon was already dark. A trace of moonlight could be seen on top of the steep cliff that was hundreds of meters high. Full moon night. Tai's eyelids twitched. Fortunately, at this moment, they saw a huge city wall built against the mountain in front of them. There were colorful city signs engraved on the city wall. It seemed to be a peacock's tail. We've reached Peacock City. Quick, quick, Peacock City is in front of us. Tai shouted excitedly. The four of them spurred their horses and even used their teleportation skills to rush toward Peacock City. However, at this moment, the ground suddenly rumbled. Following that, a steel wall slowly rose from the ground in front of Peacock City's city wall. One city wall was not enough. Was there another steel wall? A bugle call resounded through the canyon. On the cliff behind the city, a large number of figures suddenly appeared. They held bows and arrows and stood at the top of the cliff. They lined up and filled the entire Peacock City. Everyone, pay attention. It's the night of the full moon. The demons have awakened. Be on your guard. At the same time, Lu Chen and the other three had already arrived at the city gate. The iron gate had not been completely raised. As long as they opened the city gate now, the four of them could enter Peacock City. It's Peacock City's guards. General, please open the city gate and let the four of us in. I beg you. Tai shouted. Among the guards, a man in golden armor looked down and saw Tai and the other three at a glance. There are still people here. The city gate has already been closed. Scram. Luo Yao frowned. As the ruler of Dongyu country, she naturally understood this kind of military fortification. Your outer gate has not been completely closed. This means that the city is not sealed yet. The opening of the inner gate does not affect the closing of the outer gate. Why are you not opening the gate? That person looked at Luo Yao from afar and coldly snorted, why are you not opening the gate? Because I don't want to open it. Chapter 833. Everyone knows that in the Demon Eye Valley, on the night of the full moon, the Demon Eye opens and the Demon Eye appears. However, I have been in charge of guarding the Peacock City stronghold for many years, yet I have never seen the Demon Eye open. The steel door was still slowly closing, but the guard was still speaking unhurriedly. There is a change in the weather in front, I wonder if that fellow is nearby. Actually, I really hope that it is. If I can see the so-called demon eye, ha 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 ha, it can also be an interesting matter. Lu Chen coldly snorted and looked at that person, so, in your eyes, we are just here to add to your fun. Otherwise? You should feel honored to have such an opportunity. Sir, please open the door. If you want to have fun, just let me stay here alone. Ah Tai was so anxious that he almost cried, let my benefactor and my daughter enter the city, I beg you. The city gate was right in front of them, but they were only a small step away from escaping. In the end, what awaited them was the most terrifying night of the full moon. They are your benefactors, not mine. Your daughter is a treasure in your eyes, but she is worthless to me. That person was unmoved, it is more interesting to leave a few more alive. The demon eye rarely comes out, so we have to be good hosts and let it eat until it is full. You humans have the most delicious meat, so just treat it as my supper for them. Ah Tai still wanted to say something, but Lu Chen patted his shoulder, Brother Tai, don't beg him. Can't tell that he wants to see us die. But we are only one step away. Ah Tai was extremely vexed. Lu Chen smiled, actually, it is not that important whether I send you to the Peacock City or not. Even if I send you here, I will not stay here. Ah. Not only was Ah Tai surprised, even Luo Yao looked at Lu Chen strangely. Lu Chen looked behind him at the gradually darkening sky. Lu Chen's gaze became serious. I originally wanted to take a good look at the Demon Eye Valley and see what kind of fellow lives here. The spirit vein was here. Could it be that the ones guarding it were the four heavenly kings of the magical beasts? But no matter what, if he wanted to open the spirit vein, this battle was unavoidable. Since it was unavoidable, why would he hide on the night of the full moon? Looking up at the cliff, the moon had already climbed the branches of the mountain. Let's find a place to rest. Lu Chen led the three of them to a flat area outside Peacock City. What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to eat? Add the bonfire to boil water and cook. Lu Chen looked at the dumbfounded father and daughter with a funny face. Tai also reacted and nodded. That thing may not be able to find us. Even if it comes, we can't fight on an empty stomach. Xiao Hui, boil water and cook. The two of them searched for some dry grass and twigs nearby and began to get busy. Lu Chen walked to Luo Yao's side. Hey, it's not even 2 months yet. Can you still guarantee my safety? Luo Yao glared at Lu Chen. You've thought about it from the beginning, haven't you? You said yourself that you'd guarantee my safety for 2 months. I didn't force you. Luo Yao smiled helplessly. No wonder you didn't tell me what you wanted to do. You're too evil. I don't know what we'll face on the night of the full moon. I'm not sure if I can still guarantee your safety. If I can't beat it, you'll probably run away since you're so smart, right? Lu Chen smiled. Of course I'll run away. If I can't even beat you, why wouldn't I run? Luo Yao shook her head. That was true. Solipsistic was a despicable person. Until now, he had almost never fought. Even against the Night Ghost tribe, he had only dealt with a few earth cultivation women. If you run, bring the father and daughter with you. After Luo Yao finished speaking, she turned around and sat under a tree stump, closing her eyes to rest. Lu Chen smiled. He didn't expect that this fierce person would actually consider the father and daughter. He looked at the night sky and narrowed his eyes. 8 eyes or 9 eyes? Or some demon or ghost? I'm coming. Tai was staring at the pot in a daze. Perhaps he was worried about his upcoming fate. The water in the pot swayed slightly. Gradually, it wasn't just the water that was swaying. Following that, the branches holding the stove started to sway, and then the ground. The water in the pot swayed higher and higher, and the boiling water spilled onto the ground. Tai raised his head. On the cliff, the Peacock City's guards gathered together. Everyone had drawn their bows and were ready for battle. At some point in time, a full moon had appeared in the sky above the canyon, illuminating the entire canyon. The night of the full moon. Ah Tai's pupils shrank. The Magic Eye Canyon stretched for thousands of miles. However, no matter where it was, no one dared to pass through the canyon on the night of the full moon. Because no matter where you were, that thing would find you. The ground rumbled and shook violently. The rocks on the surrounding cliffs shook and rolled down from high places. In the dark night, several figures slowly appeared from the darkness. There were 30 to 40 jiaos. However, they were taller and their bodies were blurry. Their bodies emitted a black fog, and only the outlines of their bodies could be seen. If one looked closely, their eyes were emitting a faint black fog. At the core of the black fog was a ball of faint green eyeball. It's not a rain jiao, it's a ghost jiao. Luo Yao stared at the group of demonic beasts. These are probably ghost jiaos close to the 8th transformation. Why are there so many of them? Could it be the ancient full moon night? However, when a low beast roar came from behind, these terrifying creatures lowered their heads and consciously made way for the two sides. A gigantic beast that was 25 meters tall walked out of the darkness with light steps from the group of sly ghosts. One had to know that the level 5 demonic beasts were different from the wild monsters in the previous heaven domains. Their bodies were not as big as those wild monsters, but their strength was stronger than the wild monster bosses from before. The reason why they were small was because they fought with their true bodies. 25 meters, it was already twice as tall as those rank 6 or 7 rain jiaos from before. This giant beast was like a cheetah. It had a slender body and was covered in golden leopard patterns. It had 3 tails behind it. The most terrifying thing was the dense rows of eyes on its head. They were randomly distributed, and each eye did not have an eyelid. They were moving irregularly. If one was stared at by these eyes, one would probably have nightmares for a few days. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8, it's 8 eyes. 8-eyed ghoul. Atai's body trembled slightly. He suppressed the nervousness in his heart and stood up. He took out his long staff and blocked in front of Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape today. But don't be afraid, our family can finally be reunited. How could Atai not know that his wife had already been killed? The reason why he brought his daughter for thousands of miles was just to chase after a slim hope. And now, it was time to let go of his obsession. Would the family be able to reunite again in the netherworld? The 8-eyed ghoul appeared as expected. At this moment, they did not know if they should be glad that they only met the 8-eyed ghoul and not the 9-eyed ghoul. Luo Yao took a step forward and blocked in front of Lu Qin, Atai, and Xiao Hui. Her long hair that was tied up previously had fallen down. At this moment, she took out a long red ribbon and bit it on her lips. She elegantly tied up her long hair with both hands. Then, she took off the ribbon with one hand and tied it up. She took out her purple long sword and pointed it to the ground. She turned her head. The wind lifted her long hair and it danced in the wind. The moonlight shone on her perfect face. Everything was so beautiful that it was unreal. Luo Yao whispered to the person behind her, Nameless, do you remember what I told you? Yes. Luo Yao nodded, there's one more thing. You still don't know who I am, right? It doesn't matter who you are. Lu Chen said. Luo Yao smiled, it really doesn't matter. I've almost forgotten who I am. It really doesn't matter who I am. Nameless, I only hope that you will be the one in a million. Lu Chen did not understand what Luo Yao meant. Before he could ask, the woman had already walked towards the herd of beasts. There was one more thing that Luo Yao did not say to Lu Chen. She walked towards the herd of beasts. Luo Yao's gaze instantly sharpened. Nameless, calm Luo Yao, said that I will protect you for 2 months. One day less. Then I'm not the Jade Emperor. Chapter 834. Unfortunately, Lu Chen didn't hear Luo Yao's last sentence. He didn't know how persistent this woman was. Of course, he also didn't know that this woman was the Jade Emperor who once commanded the winds and clouds of the fifth heaven. In Lu Chen's eyes, Luo Yao was just a beautiful woman with a mysterious identity. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao's back. He had the urge to rush to her side. According to Lu Chen's personality, he would never hide behind a woman. But this time, he did not make a move. The 8-eyed gnome and the 32 peak rank 7 ghost craftsmen were terrifying, but what was the so-called appearance of a demon on a full moon night? What was a demon? Lu Chen was sure that it was not just at this level. He had a premonition that behind the 8-eyed gnome, there was a pair of eyes staring at him. It was like a tiger waiting for an opportunity to strike, hiding in the grass and watching its prey's every move. However, at this moment, Lu Chen was also like a hunter, waiting for his prey to take the bait. There were both hunters and prey. The only question now was who was the hunter and who was the prey. The ghost craftsman had already turned into black smoke and surrounded Luo Yao. Luo Yao snorted. The purple sword in her hand spun a few times like a dagger. She grabbed the hilt, purple firmament, unsheath. That unsheathed purple sword was just a scabbard. The woman pulled hard and pulled out an even thinner purple longsword from the purple sword. In an instant, Luo Yao's body erupted with powerful purple spirit energy. It shone brightly like the morning glow of dawn. When they saw the longsword, several experts on the cliff widened their eyes in shock. Wait, that sword, could it be the third-ranked sword in the fifth layer of heaven, purple firmament-breaking night? Impossible, purple firmament-breaking night is that woman's sword. Dongyu country and its neighboring countries have not had a large-scale war for decades. No one has seen that sword for a long time. But, the purple light is like the morning glow. Other than purple firmament-breaking night, which other weapon has such powerful spirit energy pressure? Moreover, isn't the one using the sword a beautiful woman of the human race? I don't know, but that woman would never come to White Lion country alone. It's even more impossible for her to travel with strangers. Have you forgotten her identity? Now that he mentioned it, that was indeed the case. How could the Eastern Peak Nation's Jade Emperor be the person below? The purple firmament was unsheathed. In a flash, Luo Yao had already charged into the crowd of sly spirits. However, even though Luo Yao's attack was as fast as lightning, when the sword energy hit the Ghost Jiao did not receive any damage. Instead, the Ghost Jiao seemed to be enraged. They howled and rushed toward Luo Yao. Lu Chen frowned. These sly spirits don't eat sword qi. Atai's expression was equally solemn. Ghost Jiaos are different from rain Jiaos. Ghost Jiaos are the strongest of the Jiaos. Their spiritual defense is ridiculously high. Look, even if it's a first revolution sly ghost, it doesn't have any reaction after being hit by my sword. They all have rank 7 peak stage strength. Benefactor, we can't just watch Lady Luo Yao go deep into the enemy's formation. At most, I'll die, I'll fight them. Lu Chen grabbed Atai's arm and said, don't go. You'll only cause trouble for her if you go. Besides, you still have a daughter to protect. But now, Lu Chen's gaze never left the battlefield. He needed to keep an eye on the darkness behind the 8-eyed Jiaos. Luo Yao might not lose. Have you forgotten that she has not used soul-body fusion? With Lady Luo Yao's cultivation level, maybe, her main body is not much weaker than her battle soul. Atai suddenly said. Luo Yao's cultivation level should be above 5-star Emperor cultivation level. Lu Chen was only a 7-star cultivator, but he already had 40,000 spirit energy points. The higher one's cultivation level, the greater the increase in spirit energy. In this case, the 3 dimensions of an Emperor cultivator's main body could reach several 100,000 spirit energy points. The battle souls of many experts in the 4th layer heaven were actually at this level. Even their spirit energy was not that high. Lu Chen shook his head. Brother Tai, you are a native, you shouldn't have a battle soul, right? A Tai did not know why Lu Chen suddenly asked this. Although he was puzzled, he still nodded. We indeed do not have the chance to cultivate a battle soul. All of our attribute increases are obtained directly from immortal pills. Immortal pills could directly increase the attributes of the main body and did not need to be extracted according to the attributes of the battle soul. Of course, it sounded like this cultivation method was very powerful. Because there were no restrictions, there were unlimited possibilities. However, the natives had an insurmountable limit. Taking immortal pills for a long time would still develop drug resistance. Lu Chen was now at a small level. His mind had to increase tens of thousands of attribute points. If he relied on immortal pills, how long could he last? Therefore, it was extremely difficult for the natives to cultivate. Lu Chen smiled. Brother Tai, you don't have a battle soul, so you don't understand how we think. The cultivation of the 5th layer of heaven is not the main body, but the battle soul. Our main body can become stronger as long as we have the extraction scroll. It is not cultivation, but the battle soul needs to be improved. As long as one has a little brain, they will not let their battle soul limit the cultivation of the main body. Luo Yao is not stupid. It is impossible that she does not know this. So I can be sure that her battle soul is definitely stronger than her main body. At this moment, on the battlefield, 8-eyed Malevolence was still watching the battle. Luo Yao had experienced hundreds of battles. Facing the sly spirits that were immune to spiritual attacks, she would not be helpless. As expected, she changed to light element attacks. This time, the response was effective. The sly spirit's illusionary figures were restrained by the light element. Luo Yao's light body jumped between the huge beasts. Everywhere she went, only corpses were left. Second transformation, third transformation, fourth transformation, fifth transformation. The 5th transformation sly spirits suddenly changed. Other than their attributes being greatly increased, they were also immune to light element attacks. Limitless way of the sword, formless. Luo Yao quickly changed her strategy and changed to physical attacks. It is not just sword manipulation. The general on the cliff squinted his eyes. Sword manipulation and sword manipulation dual cultivation. The sly spirits were immune to light element attacks, but Luo Yao could not produce an attribute that could counter dark element attacks. Between these sly spirits whose speed and attack were greatly increased, close-range physical attacks were definitely dancing on the tip of a knife. 9 palace flowers shifting. Luo Yao's body movements were mysterious. Every time, she used the smallest movement to fight for the greatest initiative. Against the 5th transformation sly spirits, Luo Yao was still at ease. However, Lu Chen, Ah Tai, and Xiao Hui did not relax. They all knew that this battle was not even the beginning. At most, it was just an appetizer. Because the 8-eyed ghoul had not moved yet. And Lu Chen did not dare to be careless. He kept staring at the 8-eyed ghoul. Its occasional movement attracted Lu Chen's attention. The 8-eyed ghoul stretched its neck and looked at the sky with its scarlet eyes. A cloud slowly moved across the sky, revealing the bright moon. The full moon was about to reach the top of the canyon. Roar! With an angry roar, the 8-eyed ghoul roared at the sky, as if urging the full moon to move faster. A few minutes later, the sly spirits had entered the 7th transformation. At this time, the battle had become extremely terrifying. Black shadows shuttled around Luo Yao quickly. Especially in the dark, their camouflage was at its peak. It was impossible to catch them with the naked eye. With such speed, even Lu Chen himself would have to use all his strength to deal with it. And at this time, the bright moon finally reached the top of the canyon. The eight-eyed ghoul let out a long roar, venting its anger after waiting for so long. Then, its roar became hoarse. When it lowered its head, Lu Chen's heart tightened. The eight-eyed ghoul's 8 eyes turned into a pitch-black fog in an instant. Even its pupils disappeared. Then, right before Lu Chen's eyes, the eight-eyed ghoul disappeared. Lu Chen finally understood. The so-called demon was the eight-eyed ghoul. It was just that on the night of the full moon, the eight-eyed ghoul mutated. Eight-eyed ghoul. Lu Chen looked at Luo Yao, who was no longer as relaxed as before. His heart tightened. Chapter 835. The eight-eyed ghost's movement could no longer be judged by common sense. Its body turned into a cloud of mist and disappeared on the spot. In the blink of an eye, black smoke appeared beside Luo Yao. Immediately after, the eight-eyed ghost's huge body condensed in front of her. This movement, it's basically a flickering movement. Atai's eyes widened. It's so fast, this is definitely not a first-rank transformation. Lu Chen shook his head, it shouldn't be. I can feel that its strength far surpasses the peak rank 7 ghouls around it. If this is only a first-rank transformation, then it's definitely not one of the 7 demon beast generals. The night of the full moon not only strengthened it, it also entered the 8th rank. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. The eight-eyed ghost's movement had become extremely strange. Its body seemed to have merged with the black smoke. When it moved and attacked, it was impossible to defend against. Luo Yao had already noticed the eight-eyed ghost's change. Seeing the ghost's attack, she used 9 palace flower steps and moved quickly to avoid it getting close to her. At this time, most of the ghouls around her had already entered the 7th rank. They were all extremely fast. In an instant, the battlefield became a blur and the intensity of the battle suddenly increased. Ghouls were originally stronger than ordinary creatures. Martial King and the 4 Azuras could only kill 3 rank 7 demonic beasts at once. Now, Luo Yao was facing 32 ghouls alone, and they were all peak rank 7 at that. Luo Yao was much stronger than Martial King and the rest, but in such a dangerous environment, the pressure Luo Yao was under was unimaginable. If it was anyone else, they would have died long ago. Luo Yao's current strategy was to avoid the eight-eyed ghost and kill the ghouls one by one. However, this plan was already extremely difficult to execute. The ghost was the same as the 8 tails, it could speak human language. I didn't expect you to have some strength. Unfortunately, in front of me, you only have one path, and that is death. 8 directions as one. The ghost hunter once again turned into a black fog. The black fog moved around Luo Yao and locked Luo Yao in the center. In an instant, 8 streaks of black mist shot toward the center at the same time. Luo Yao's 9 palace flower steps was locked. Seeing the 8 clones of the eight-eyed ghost about to attack, Luo Yao's eyes shone. Soul body as one. Luo Yao finally used soul body as one. In an instant, a violent storm of golden spiritual energy erupted from the center of the battlefield, forcing the eight-eyed evil spirit to retreat. When the spiritual energy dissipated, the woman in the field seemed to have changed into another person. She was clad in silver armor. Her slender figure did not make her look bloated even though she was clad in armor. Her white cloak fluttered behind her. That is the Imperial Advent set. The general watching the battle from the cliff stared at the Luo Yao war spirit in shock. It's definitely the Di Lin set. Imperial Advent set, purple firmament breaking night. That woman is the East Mountain Jade Empress. The deputy general beside him was already out of his wits. The East Mountain Jade Empress? How is this possible? How could she come to the White Lion Nation alone? This time we're done for. That's one of the strongest 5th celestial layer. We were rude to her before, I'm afraid we won't be able to keep our lives. General, should we help her? The general suppressed the fear in his heart and swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. His gaze was fixed on the woman on the field. It was said that the Jade Emperor could fight against an army by herself. She had killed countless people, her strength was terrifying, and she did not show any mercy. East Mountain Nation and White Lion Nation had not fought for decades. Now that the situation in the fifth celestial layer had changed, no nation wanted to be the first to be involved in a war. Earlier, he had personally given the order to stop them from entering the city. If she survived, regardless of whether she attacked him directly or reported it to the higher-ups, he would definitely die. Wait. The general's breathing was somewhat hurried. He was making an extremely important decision. Don't forget, we did not let them enter the city. According to her temper, if she survives, we will die. The deputies looked at each other. They had long heard that the Jade Emperor was cold and heartless. The general's eyes flashed with ruthlessness as he said resolutely, so what if she is the Jade Emperor? No matter how strong she is, can she defeat 32 peak stage rank 7 sly ghosts and demonized 8-eyed hounds? As long as she dies, no one will know that we did not let her enter the city. Hearing this, the others were enlightened. The general took a deep breath. Fortunately, he was still calm. He had made a wrong decision earlier, the consequences were unimaginable. Jade Emperor. Even if you are the Jade Emperor, you will die on this full moon night. Monarch Domain. Unlimited battle intent. Heaven bestowed Monarch Star. 2-star sword controlling star physique. Luo Yao shouted. Her body was surrounded by large amounts of purple spirit energy as she disappeared instantly. Sword path limitless, swordless. Ice element conversion. Luo Yao was still holding back. The sly ghosts were immune to spirit attacks and light elements. Luo Yao was still holding on to an ice element. She would only use it when the sly ghosts reached rank 7. Clearly, she was very clear that if she used the ice element too early, the sly ghosts would develop resistance. This woman's mind had always been very clear. In an instant, Luo Yao's figure turned into sword energy. The sword energy swept through the rank 7 sly ghosts like breaking rotten wood. In just an instant, Luo Yao had already killed 10 rank 7 sly ghosts. The moment she landed, the 8-eyed ghost had already caught up. Luo Yao turned around and slashed, temporarily forcing the 8-eyed ghost to retreat. Sword path limitless, swordless. The third time, the 32 peak stage rank 7 sly ghosts were all killed. This time, they were finally willing to die obediently. At this moment, the strongest move of sword path limitless, swordless, only had 3 uses in reserve. Now, all of them were used up. And now, there was only one enemy left on the battlefield. And also the most terrifying one, the 8-eyed ghost. In the previous battle, Luo Yao had been avoiding direct contact with it. Now, she could no longer avoid it. Luo Yao was very tired. After such a long time, she did not have much spirit energy left. Most importantly, the opponent had not even shown his true strength. The night wind blew, making her feel a little chilly. Under the moonlight, Luo Yao turned to look at Lu Chen. Her voice was a little tired. Why are you still here? This time, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to loot the corpses. Lu Chen was stunned for a moment. That's right. It wasn't the first time he had stood aside and watched Luo Yao fight. It was the same when she ate the Nightwalkers. At that time, he was busy looting the corpses. Nameless, take Atai and his daughter and leave. This guy is too strong. I don't know how long I can last. Lu Chen shook his head. It's not like I won't leave alone. If you want to leave, we'll leave together. Luo Yao's face that was filled with killing intent and blood showed a rare gratified smile. Although that guy's words were so stupid, if it was in the past, if a subordinate said this, he would definitely be scolded. But for some reason, she did not want to scold him now. Instead, there was a trace of warmth in her heart. Nameless, are you really that 1 in 10,000? What does a fifth layer have to go through? Maybe I won't have the chance to find the answer. Raising her hand, a metal shield appeared in Luo Yao's hand. Her front legs were slightly bent, one hand holding the shield and the other holding the sword, staring straight ahead. The eight-eyed ghost had already disappeared from her sight. And for the next attack, she must buy enough time. Chapter 836. Lowly humans, do you think you have hope after killing my men? Stop your futile struggle. In the dark night, a deep voice sounded, in front of me, you are as weak as ants. It's rare to meet someone who is slightly stronger, so I'll let you have a taste of this move. Lunar eclipse, dark side of the moon. The full moon hung high in the sky. Suddenly, the moonlight exploded. Everyone's vision was pierced at this moment. A beam of light fell from the Jiutian. No matter how fast Luo Yao's reaction was, she couldn't dodge it in time. All she could do was raise her shield to defend against this terrifying attack. This wasn't something a human could do. What kind of terrifying skill was lunar eclipse? With the protection of the immemorial imperial shield, although the spiritual energy didn't penetrate the shield, the huge pressure made Luo Yao unable to withstand it. Blood began to seep out of the corner of her mouth. In such a predicament, Luo Yao gritted her teeth and used this skill. Limitless way of the sword, summon 4 sword gods. 4 huge spiritual bodies suddenly appeared beside Luo Yao. 3 men and 2 women stood around Luo Yao. As soon as they appeared, they realized that they were in the midst of a powerful spiritual energy attack. They quickly drew their swords from their waists and released countless sword auras into the sky. With the help of the 4 sword gods, Luo Yao was actually able to defend against this attack. Release the arrows. Right at this moment, countless arrows were fired from the cliff, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Atai looked at the arrows blankly and said in surprise, the guards are finally willing to help. Lu Chen was puzzled. Why would the guards suddenly help? But on second thought, with their character, they wouldn't help at this time, no. The eight-eyed evil spirit's body is hard to track. How are they attacking? Lu Chen suddenly widened his eyes, heavenly vision. The heavenly vision quickly showed the location of the arrows. The target was Luo Yao, who was resisting the lunar eclipse. At this moment, Lu Chen's eyes faintly emitted green fog, you bastards. Not only did they not let them enter the city and watch them die, but at this critical moment of life and death, they didn't shoot the demonic beasts but shot Luo Yao instead. At this moment, Luo Yao was definitely powerless to resist these arrows. Once she was hit, only defeat and death awaited her. Lu Chen's gaze swept across the distant night. That guy still hadn't shown up. However, he couldn't care less right now. Ah Tai, take Xiao Hui and hide. Be careful of those guards. Lu Chen said, then disappeared in a flash. On the cliff, the general's lips curled up slightly, his eyes revealing a sinister look. He snorted coldly. The Eastern Jade Empress? Wasn't he still going to die? Jade Emperor, don't blame me. I saw that you couldn't hold on any longer, so I decided to lend you a helping hand so that you can be free earlier. The deputy general said, if the Jade Empress is really dead, didn't we kill her? TSK, one of the strongest 5th heavenly layer actually died in our hands. This is something worth bragging about. Don't talk nonsense. The Jade Emperor was killed by the eight-eyed evil spirit. It has nothing to do with us. Oh, right. She was killed by the eight-eyed evil spirit. He. Once the Jade Emperor is dead, the rest of the small fries will definitely die in the hands of the eight-eyed evil spirit. No one will know about this matter anymore. This plan is really perfect. It's just a pity that the Jade Empress is such a beauty. Isn't that so? I didn't even dare to think about it before. Now that she's about to die, I suddenly feel that it's a pity. The general sneered and continued to enjoy the show. Luo Yao saw the rain of arrows from the corner of her eyes. She could tell that these arrows were coming for her. It's the guards. They actually wanted to kill me. Not only were they trying to silence me for fear of punishment, but it was also an order from the Baishir nation. However, she no longer had the strength to defend against these arrows. To be able to become the guards, these people were at least earth elementalists. She already couldn't pass through the dark side of the moon, let alone tens of thousands of earth elementalists. In order to prove the prophecy, she left the Dongyu kingdom and chased them all the way to the snowy mountains. The smell of roasted snow rabbits made them travel together. She saw a nameless friend and heard Shue's story. She also saw nameless cunning and viciousness. Interestingly, even though they were getting closer, she couldn't see that person clearly. Until now, she still couldn't determine whether that person was the person in the prophecy. Perhaps he was just one of the geniuses who rose in the flood of fate and wasn't that different from the others. In the end, she still couldn't figure out the prophecy. Now, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open but hard to defend against a stab in the dark. She had been on the battlefield for 100 years. Who would have thought that she would die in the hands of a villain in the end? She couldn't even fulfill the promise she had made previously. The sword god of four directions couldn't hold on any longer. The rain of arrows was approaching. Luo Yao's life seemed to be coming to an end. No, it's not over yet. Eight-eyed, die with me. Spiritual core, self-destruct. Luo Yao was preparing to unleash her most terrifying attack. Once her spiritual core exploded, the power would be unimaginable. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from afar. Idiot! Stop! Luo Yao looked toward the source of the voice and saw a red figure shooting toward them from 1,000 meters away like a ball of fire. Don't give up. I'm all ears. Lu Qin made a grabbing motion, and a powerful suction force pulled Luo Yao toward Lu Qin. You want to run? 8 black demonic eyes flashed in the darkness. Die. 8 directions as one. It had to be said that Eight-eyed was also very experienced in battle. Lu Chen was all ears, but he didn't provide any protection for Luo Yao. At this moment, Luo Yao had almost lost her ability to fight. If he used 8 directions as one and locked onto Luo Yao, even if Lu Chen rescued Luo Yao, he would only be carrying a cold corpse. You're courting death. Lu Chen shouted. Tiger descends the mountain. Triple door. Spiritual spatial cannon. 50 spiritual cannons fired directly at the 8 doppelgangers. With the help of the triple door, the spiritual cannons almost never missed. Boom. 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 The 8 doppelgangers were blasted into 8 clouds of smoke. In the next moment, the rain of arrows fell on the place where Luo Yao was just a moment ago. Not only that, there were also a large number of arrows that were shot toward Luo Yao. Lu Chen snorted coldly, and a longbow appeared in his hand. This longbow wasn't a real thing, but an illusion. Flash. Rapid attack. Strongest bow. Whoosh. 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 Hundreds of black crystal arrows shot out, shooting down those arrows. However, time was short, and there seemed to be a strong opponent on the other side. Some of the arrows couldn't be shot down. In the next second, Lu Chen hugged Luo Yao with one hand and turned around. 10 arrows pierced through his back, and the sharp arrowheads pierced through his chest. Blood gushed out from Lu Chen's chest. Luo Yao lay in Lu Chen's arms, looking at the arrows in horror. You're injured. Lu Chen smiled and gently placed Luo Yao under a tree. He looked at the wounds on his body. Just avoid the vital parts. I'm used to being heavily injured. After saying that, Lu Chen broke the broken arrow in his chest and pulled out another arrow from his back. Just nice, I don't like to fight with full HP. His gaze fell on the defenders on the cliff, and killing intent appeared. When I'm done here, none of them can escape. After saying that, Lu Chen turned around and walked slowly to the center of the battlefield. Another one who isn't afraid of death. The eight-eyed demon's voice sounded from all directions. Lu Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said in a deep voice, "You're wrong. I'm very afraid of death. In order to not die, so." Lu Chen's lips curled up, and then gradually stopped smiling. He said coldly, "I can only let you die." Chapter 837. The guards on the cliff did not expect that someone would appear out of nowhere and rescue the Jade Empress. "General, the Jade Empress is not dead." The deputy general was nervous. This was a matter of life and death. The general looked at Luo Yao who was resting under the tree and squinted his eyes. "Don't worry. She is already at the end of her rope. Do you think that man can stop the eight-eyed evil spirit?" "Impossible. Although that guy seems to have some tricks up his sleeve, he is only a 7-star cultivator. Now that he is seriously injured, I don't think he can last more than a few seconds. That's it. Even if we don't kill the Jade Empress, don't forget who the owner of this canyon is. Just leave it to the eight-eyed evil spirit." The general's words reassured the subordinate. The eight-eyed evil spirit was several times stronger than usual when it was under a full moon. There was nothing to worry about. Luo Yao had forced herself to eat the dark side of the moon. Her body was about to fall apart. Now she could only struggle to sit up and lean against the tree while looking at Lu Chen's back. Tai and Xiao Hui rushed to Luo Yao. The father and daughter stood beside Luo Yao to prevent the guards from attacking her. Despicable man. Not only did he not save her, he even hit her when she was down. Tai said angrily. Luo Yao looked at the father and daughter. Although their strength was not worth mentioning in her eyes, she could feel that they were trying their best to protect her. Luo Yao suddenly thought of Lu Chen's principle of choosing friends. He only looked at their character and not their strength. She understood it now. These weak people were much more adorable than some people. Luo Yao looked at the battlefield again and took a deep breath. She knew the nameless evil spirit's other name, solipsistic. She had heard of the solipsistic evil spirit's achievements. Among millions of people, he was the first. Although she did not know whether he had obtained Nuwa's treasure or not, he was the only one who had the chance to get close to Nuwa's soul remnant. This was not something an ordinary person could do. Without using soul body as one, he defeated the 5 experts of the Martial Imperial Mansion in 3 seconds. This proved that his strength was not as simple as it seemed. However, on the other hand, everything Luo Yao knew was only hearsay. She had never seen solipsistic in action. In Luo Yao's heart, no matter how strong the solipsistic was, it was impossible for him to be stronger than her. Perhaps in the end, they would still not be able to escape the fate of dying in the Demon Eye Valley. But at this moment, she felt much more at ease. When solipsistic used his body to block those arrows for her, when he put her down and turned around to walk towards the eight-eyed evil spirit, she seemed to have finally come into contact with a trace of solipsistic, a complete and utter lunatic. Tai, Xiao Hui, hurry up and leave, Luo Yao said weakly. Maybe there's still a chance of survival. Tai looked at Luo Yao in surprise. Miss Luo Yao, how could you say something like that? Nameless won't be able to stop the eight-eyed evil spirit. That guy can draw upon the power of moonlight. It's not something a human can handle. Luo Yao said. Sister Luo Yao, we won't leave. If we live together. If we die together. Xiao Hui said firmly. We're not afraid of death. We'll never leave Brother Nameless behind. Yes, Miss Luo Yao, I'm sorry. We can't listen to you this time. Being able to get to know the two of them before they die, Tai and shall we also understand that not all the cultivators in this world are so cold-blooded and heartless. Even if we die, we'll die without regrets. Tai sighed, but the look in his eyes was incomparably resolute. It seemed that there was no way to convince the father and daughter. Lu Yao smiled and shook her head. Had she changed? Had she started to care about the lives of these lowly subjects? If that was the case, then the culprit behind everything was that guy. Luo Yao looked at the field again. Solipsistic was standing in the middle of the field. Blood was still gushing out of his back. Fortunately, he was wearing red clothes, so it wasn't too obvious. Nameless, the eight-eyed evil spirit was stronger than the eight-tailed evil spirit. And the eight-eyed evil spirit's strength had doubled again. The opponent Lu Chen was facing now was without a doubt the strongest opponent he had ever faced. Moreover, it seemed that the eight-eyed evil spirit wasn't the only one that Lu Chen feared. In this battle, Lu Chen was in an unprecedentedly difficult situation. The eight-eyed evil spirit had actually revealed its true form. Its huge body stood in front of Lu Chen. Its 8 eyes rotated irregularly, as if it was sizing up Lu Chen from all directions. 7-star wild cultivator. Ha 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 ha, I thought you were some kind of expert. How dare you speak so arrogantly? Kid, are you trying to make me laugh to death? Do you still want to learn from that woman and not use soul body as one? The eight-eyed fiend's tone was full of mockery. That woman must be one of the top cultivators among you cultivators. Even she activated soul body as one the moment she faced me. But you, a mere 7-star cultivator, are still standing there, not knowing what's good for you. Lu Chen looked at the eight-eyed evil spirit indifferently. Then let's see if you have the ability to see my soul body as one. Ha ha ha, I really don't know where your confidence comes from. I've seen many crazy people, but at least they have some real skills. To think that a piece of trash like you would dare to be so arrogant, this is the first time I've seen such a thing. Lu Chen snorted coldly. The eight-tailed evil spirit said the same thing before. At the mention of the eight-tailed evil spirit, the eight-eyed evil spirit suddenly paused. The eight-tailed evil spirit had already fallen. This matter had been confirmed by the magical beast army long ago, but they had never found out who killed the eight-tailed evil spirit. And this guy actually brought it up at this time. This made people associate the eight-tailed evil spirit's death with him. The eight-tailed evil spirit. It can't be that you killed it, right? Lu Chen smiled slightly. I suggest you ask it directly. The eight-eyed evil spirit's eyes glinted fiercely, black fog suddenly erupting from its eyes. You're asking for death. In an instant, the eight-eyed evil spirit's body entered the black fog state. Moon celestial form. So this was a celestial form. Logically speaking, Lu Chen's divine demon celestial form could easily suppress the opponent's celestial form. However, the recovery of the divine demon celestial form was too slow, lasting only a few seconds. Once used, if the guy guarding the spirit vein appeared, Lu Chen would be in extreme danger. Whatever celestial form, he had to save it for last. Divine demon symbiosis. Lu Chen's body exploded with chaotic spiritual energy. His black hair was stained with frost, dancing in the wind. His body grew slightly taller. Red robe and white hair, even in the middle of the night, still stood out. Luo Yao was stunned for a moment. How did that guy suddenly become so handsome? And what's with that pair of ears? God of War possession. Demon transformation. Dragon blood boil. 3 lives reincarnation. There was no need to use Death Land anymore. The previous attack by the defending army had already helped Lu Chen save this round. The madness passive was already in effect, and there was no need to reduce his HP. Lu Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. He raised one hand, and a black and white double-colored sword was drawn from the void. The moment the limitless divinity appeared, the purple firmament-breaking knight beside Luo Yao suddenly trembled. Luo Yao stared at Zi Xiao with wide eyes, then looked at the long sword in Lu Chen's hand. Her eyes were filled with shock. To actually make purple firmament-shattering knight feel danger. That sword, just what sword is it? Chapter 838. The infinite celestial demon sword was different from purple firmament-breaking knight. It did not have a scabbard. It was formed by heaven and earth were the scabbard. At that moment, the eight-eyed evil spirit had already launched its attack. Lunar eclipse, 100 ghosts parade. In an instant, the eight-eyed evil spirit's speed increased again. It was already in front of Lu Chen in an instant. The black smoke condensed into a solid body and clawed at Lu Chen's face. The evil spirit's speed was so fast that it exceeded a human's reaction speed. If not for Lu Chen's celestial eyes, he would not have been able to catch the evil spirit's attack. I'll show you the difference in strength between us. Die. Even Luo Yao, who was in soul-body unification, did not dare to take the evil spirit's attack head-on. Moreover, Lu Chen had not activated soul-body unification and was heavily injured. He could not withstand the evil spirit's attack. Even if Lu Chen was prepared, he still had to increase his speed to the maximum. 9 void steps. Stepping on the void, Lu Chen instantly moved. The miniature vortex formed under his feet pushed the evil spirit's attack away, buying him some time to dodge. Run. Do you think you can run? Lunar eclipse, refraction. Lu Chen was already dozens of meters away from the evil spirit, but suddenly, his celestial eyes saw a surge of spiritual energy flashing at an unbelievable speed in front of Lu Chen. The black smoke condensed again, and a huge figure loomed in front of Lu Chen. Lu Chen's eyes widened. This guy was too fast. Even a skill like rapid movement would be intercepted by it while it was moving at high speed. Triple gate. Lu Chen quickly teleported away. However, the evil spirit followed him like a shadow. It felt like it appeared at Lu Chen's landing spot at the same time. When Lu Chen stopped, it was ready to attack. Oh my god, that's fast. That's the real body. Atai's eyes widened. To be honest, he could not see the trajectory of Lu Chen and the evil spirit even if he widened his eyes. All he saw was a frozen image without the process. The two of them had only just exchanged blows, but their speed was already so fast that it was impossible for the naked eye to catch them. Luo Yao couldn't help but take a deep breath. Ghost Hunter's close combat ability is really strong. Lu Chen was also under a lot of pressure. The eight-eyed ghost demon was too fast, his nerves were already extremely tense, but he was still unable to get rid of the eight-eyed ghost demon. Every time he landed on the ground, it was time for the other party to launch an attack. Under such circumstances, it was already good enough that Lu Chen could dodge, let alone counterattack. So fast that I don't have time to use my moves. Lunar eclipse, forbidden moon. Eight-eyed suddenly used another skill. With a boom, hundreds of pillars of light suddenly erupted from the ground, shooting straight into the sky and converging towards the full moon overhead. Only now did Lu Chen realize that the other party had actually set up an array formation in the pursuit just now. Lu Chen's mind raced. His opponent was in an astral state, which didn't have to rely on skills or battle pets. However, the astral state wasn't invulnerable. As long as Lu Chen had a chance to attack, he could force his opponent out of the astral state. More importantly, he didn't have time to use any skills while moving at such a high speed. Besides, Lu Chen didn't know the effects of the Forbidden Moon yet. He didn't have any debuffs on him, and his skills weren't disabled. He didn't know what the other party was up to. The pillars of light had disappeared, but Lu Chen noticed that a large amount of spirit energy was flowing from the full moon to the ground, forming an invisible wall of spirit energy around him. Unlike the wall of spirit energy left by the heaven patching palm, this wall of spirit energy was flowing at a high speed. He didn't even have to think about it. If he rashly touched the wall of spirit energy, the consequences would be unimaginable. Was the forbidden moon only imprisoning him? Lu Chen didn't have time to think about it. The ghost hunter was coming at him again. Lu Chen quickly used his all-seeing eyes to locate the ghost hunter and used the triple gate to distance himself. Lu Chen had just dodged when the ghost hunter chased after him again. "Kid, I didn't know that you're so fast. I've underestimated you. You're definitely stronger than a 7-star cultivator." The ghost hunter's voice came from behind him. "I still have to thank you. If you hadn't mentioned the 8 tails, I might have been careless. But since you've mentioned it, I'll have to be careful. Unfortunately, in my forbidden land of the moon formation, you will slowly experience what despair is." After saying that, the ghost hunter turned into black smoke again and instantly caught up to Lu Chen. Just as Lu Chen was about to use the triple gate to dodge, he suddenly realized that the previously normal triple gate couldn't be used anymore. Fortunately, Lu Chen reacted quickly and replaced it with 9 void steps, barely dodging the ghost hunter's claw. Since Lu Chen had just changed his skill, his speed was a bit slower. The ghost hunter's claw brushed past Lu Chen's body and slashed down. With a boom, a black smoke tore a huge crack in the ground. It was 100 meters long and 4 to 5 meters wide. Seeing this, Tai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Large beads of sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. A casual attack actually carried such a terrifying amount of spirit energy and tore the ground apart. If this attack had landed on the Nameless Brother, it would have torn him apart. It turned out that every time the Nameless Brother dodged, it was a brush with death. Lu Chen gradually began to pant. The chase just now had consumed too much of his stamina and spirit energy. Spirit energy could be replenished with Spirit Energy Storm, but stamina couldn't be recovered. Should he activate Soul Body as one? Not only was the 8-eyed ghost hunter powerful, but he had also activated the 7 transformations of God and Demon symbiosis. His attributes had doubled compared to when he was fighting Six-Tailed. He actually didn't end up in such a sorry state. Not only was the 8-eyed ghost hunter powerful, but he was also very cautious. He didn't underestimate Lu Chen just because of his level. He was definitely a difficult opponent. Letting out a long breath, Lu Chen adjusted his breathing. At least he hadn't been hit yet. With the 8-eyed ghost hunter's current state, he could hide in the darkness at any time. His speed was also unimaginably fast. The Sacred Lotus Sword Heart's damage was terrifying, but the problem was that even with the Triple Gate and the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart, it was difficult to hit him. What's more, the Triple Gate was now forbidden by the Forbidden Moon. And in the Forbidden Moon, Lu Chen also discovered that the 9 void steps was also forbidden. To be more precise, it wasn't the same as before the 4th celestial stage. Instead, it was because the spirit core couldn't circulate the spirit energy in the corresponding way, causing the skill to be unable to be used. In other words, this was a type of formation that blocked the meridians, causing the flow of spirit energy to be blocked. Even if he changed to the primal chaos element, he couldn't break through the formation's seal on the meridians. The only good news was that Lu Chen seemed to have figured out the Forbidden Moon's function. As long as he used a move in this area, the Forbidden Land would understand the flow of his meridians and interfere, causing the skill to be sealed. The Triple Gate and 9 void steps were normal before, but after the Forbidden Moon took effect, he used each of them once and was sealed. If this continued, once the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart couldn't hit him, then even if he had 4 reserves, he still wouldn't be able to use them. "Brat, your time of death has come." The demon ghost's voice sounded again, "Come, offer your blood to my blood moon." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.